Chapter 523. A month later, in the canyon above the gravity mountain, Lu Yun sat there drinking wine. Occasionally, he would glance down and see a young man clad in thin robes sprinting with all his might. This fellow's adaptability is truly strong. Junior sister Lingshuang, do you want a sip? Lu Yun stretched his wine gourd towards Yi Lingshuang, only to see Yi Lingshuang glaring at him. It's fine if you don't want to drink. Why must you be so fierce? No matter what, you are still a princess. Lu Yun kept his wine gourd, only to see Yi Lingshuang's countenance turning heavy as sadness flickered in her eyes. Lu Yun. Jiang Huai, who was standing behind, coldly spoke. Lu Yun continued drinking as he faintly replied, Junior sister, calm down a little. I didn't say anything wrong. I know. Yi Lingshuang softly replied, her words causing Lu Yun's countenance to falter. After which he joked, why don't junior sister marry me? I will definitely take good care of you. Scram. Yi Lingshuang cursed. This bastard's skin was truly thick. Sigh, seems like I still have to go to the lakeside lodge to look for Fairy Z. I'll come back next month to visit him. Lu Yun turned and walked away in a carefree manner. Yi Lingshuang and Jiang Huai didn't leave. Yi Lingshuang stared at the sprinting Qin Wentian as she silently mused. What a strong adaptability, to be able to run at such a speed. When Qin Wentian first stepped into the Gravity Mountain Canyon, even walking was difficult. The gravity here was simply too terrifying. Only after an entire month did he slowly get used to it. Now he could rely on his own will and strength to run, unceasingly surpassing his own limits. At this moment, Qin Wentian walked to the side of a huge black boulder as he mumbled in a low voice, I wonder how heavy this boulder is. Qin Wentian circulated the astral energy in his body as he infused his will into his arms. With a sudden burst of strength, rumbling sounds rang out as Qin Wentian lifted up a gigantic boulder. However, an instant later, a terrifying rumbling sound echoed out as the earth cracked apart. The gigantic boulder landed on the ground as Qin Wentian collapsed onto the ground, panting for breath. This boulder is only 5,000 jin, but that's in other places. The gravity here is 1,000 times stronger. Qin Wentian lamented in his heart. He couldn't even lift a single stone. Helplessly, he walked towards the direction of the forest, picked up the axe beside him, and chopped at the ancient tree. However, he discovered that the ancient tree only had a layer of skin broken. He couldn't help but lament in his heart. Although his strength was now very limited, this ancient tree was a bit too sturdy. Turning his head back, he glanced at the row of gigantic boulders. There seemed to be some smaller boulders as well. Walking over, he carried the smaller boulder in his arms and started to walk forward with great difficulty. Every step he took left a deep footprint on the ground, as though he had sunk into the ground. So heavy. Qin Wentian felt extremely depressed, but he could only grit his teeth and persevere. After walking over 10 steps, his entire body was already drenched in sweat, but he still gritted his teeth. This tempering exercise in the mountain of gravity allowed him to find the feeling he had when he first stepped on the path of cultivation. The most primitive feeling, constantly breaking through his limits, squeezing out all the power of his body, causing it to grow stronger. During this month, he gradually got used to the terrifying gravity. This in itself was already a huge improvement. Qin Wentian silently tempered himself in the mountain of gravity. Occasionally, he would see others entering the mountain of gravity to temper themselves. 3 months later, he was finally able to lift a boulder, and at the same time, he wielded his axe, chopping down ancient trees. Every month, Lu Yun and Yi Lingshuang would come to visit him. Today, Qin Wentian was chopping trees again. Right now, every chop of his axe was extremely effortless, as though it was a habit. He tried to infuse his will of mandates into the axe, and every chop he chopped down would have a slight improvement. As time passed, this improvement would be magnified, allowing him to chop deeper into the tree. This fellow's improvement is so fast. Lu Yun and the others came again. They sat on the roof of the mountain of gravity and watched as Qin Wentian chopped down with his axe. Deep cracks actually appeared on the ancient trees, and after tens of chops, an ancient tree collapsed. This time around, Lu Yun didn't leave. He watched as Qin Wentian chopped down trees. Not even a day had passed, and Qin Wentian had already chopped down 100 trees. However, he didn't give up and continued chopping. Don't tell me he's preparing to chop down all the trees in the mountain of gravity? The elders in charge of planting trees would definitely feel heartache. Lu Yun mumbled. Lu Yun mumbled. Every single tree here was like a seed. It would allow the ancient trees to grow rapidly, allowing the disciples of the battle sword sect to chop them down. Why is it getting weaker and weaker? Why does it take so long to chop down a single tree? Lu Yun furrowed his brows, feeling somewhat puzzled. He's not using his will of mandates, he's using pure strength to chop down the trees. Yiling Shuang spoke, her words causing Lu Yun to blink. Yiling Shuang. At this moment, a voice drifted over from afar. Yiling Shuang turned her head only to see a silhouette walking over, causing a strange expression to appear on Yiling Shuang's face. This was the disciple in charge of transmitting messages from the battle sword sect. What happened? Here's your letter. The other party passed a letter to Yiling Shuang. Yiling Shuang opened it and instantly felt her entire body turning cold. Her countenance turned ashen. Junior sister, what's wrong? Lu Yun asked seriously when he saw the expression on Yiling Shuang's face. My father is heavily injured, his life is in danger. Yiling Shuang spoke, her words causing Lu Yun's heart to tremble. He knew who Yiling Shuang was. She was a princess of an ancient country, and her father was the emperor of a generation. This ancient country had existed for over 10,000 years, and was extremely powerful. The internal conflicts were extremely complicated, and Lu Yun faintly knew a little about it. Did the Violet Thunder sect interfere? Lu Yun asked. I don't know. Yiling Shuang's countenance was still pale. Lu Yun spoke again. Let's report this to Master and see if there's a solution. There are also medical experts in the battle sword sect. Yiling Shuang placed the letter down as she replied in a low voice. We've already invited the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley. Lu Yun's eyes flashed with sharpness as he continued. The newly promoted Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley has already broken through to a 5th-ranked Pill King not too long ago. Not only that, she has also obtained the true inheritance of the Medicine Sovereign. In the current younger generation of the Royal Sacred Region, she can be considered a legendary character. Since we've already invited her, there shouldn't be any problems. The Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley was also a legendary character. It was said that back then when she was sent into the Medicine Sovereign Valley, she was on the verge of death. However, the identity of the person who sent her into the Medicine Sovereign Valley was unknown, and the Medicine Sovereign actually personally acted to save her. Not only that, the Medicine Sovereign used all of his effort to cleanse her marrows and reconstruct her life force. After that, he even imparted all of his knowledge to her, causing this Holy Maiden to soar up like a shooting star. Even the true name of the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley was unknown. They won't give up so easily. Yiling Shuang's heart was in a mess, yet she didn't have the time to think too much. Right now she didn't know what to do. Let's look for senior brother, and let him think of a solution. Let's go. Lu Yun knew that right now, Yiling Shuang's heart was in a mess. He instantly made his decision and brought Yiling Shuang away. Yiling Shuang's heart was still filled with sorrow. A heaven-shaking genius had appeared in the ancient country. From then on, the internal factions of the ancient country grew even more divided. Her elder brother, who was slightly older than her, had outstanding talent and was able to enter the Violet Thunder sect. He didn't even need to pass the examination, and was directly sent to the Royal Sacred Sect. This was the promise of the Violet Thunder sect. And now what level had he grown to? All of this, Qin Wentian had no idea. He was still chopping trees, and when he was tired, he would take a break before continuing to move the huge boulders. Right now he was more than willing to do these things, and was extremely optimistic. Occasionally, he would gain some insights and practice his axe on the huge boulder, or brandish his heavenly hammer. Such days passed by extremely contentedly. Although his cultivation base didn't increase, he wasn't in a rush either. When the time comes, success will come naturally. Only with a solid foundation would one's combat prowess grow stronger. Another 2 days passed. Qin Wentian lay comfortably on the huge boulder. The sunlight cascaded down on him, illuminating the contours of his body. That was the beauty of strength. Right now, the terrifying gravitational force in the canyon gradually faded away. He knew that he was currently undergoing a baptism, and his physique was much stronger compared to before. Junior brother Qin. A voice interrupted Qin Wentian's beautiful dream. Opening his eyes, he saw Lin Shuai standing on top of the canyon. Senior brother. Qin Wentian sat up as he stared at Lin Shuai. What's wrong? The entire forest has been chopped down by you. Yet you still don't want to come out? Lin Shuai glanced at the forest as his heart shuddered. This fellow was truly powerful. To think that he could adapt so quickly and even chop down the entire forest. Qin Wentian smiled. After which, he stomped on the ground and soared up into the air, landing at the edge of the canyon. At this instant, without the powerful gravitational force, Qin Wentian felt as though his entire body was as light as a feather. Such a feeling was simply too wonderful. Senior brother. Why are you so free to come over? Qin Wentian laughed. Let me tell you something. Your senior sister Yi Lingshuang is the princess of an ancient country with a history of over 10,000 years. However, there are a few powerful kings in the Yi country. In addition, Yi Lingshuang has a cousin who is around the same age as her, and is a descendant of a king. His talent is unparalleled, and he joined the Violet Thunder sect, causing the Yi clan's struggle for the throne to be extremely intense. Lin Shuai slowly explained, his words causing Qin Wentian's expression to stiffen as he instantly understood. The kings of ancient countries were extremely powerful, and they even had the support of the Violet Thunder sect. Most probably, they wanted to seize the throne. The Yi country itself is extremely powerful. Initially, my Battle Sword sect and the Violet Thunder sect shouldn't be involved in their internal strife. But because of some special reasons, the Violet Thunder sect is involved in this. Yi Lingshuang's father, a human emperor, is currently heavily injured and on the verge of death. Hence, the Yi country invited the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley to act. Lin Shuai continued as he turned and walked away. Qin Wentian followed behind Lin Shuai, not saying anything. Since Lin Shuai came here to tell him this, there must be a reason behind it. Lingshuang wishes to return immediately, but I'm worried that something might happen to her. Hence I stopped her. After all, with her current strength, there's no use for her to return. In fact, she might even be plotted against. At the same time, I've also sent people to investigate the situation in the Yi country. Now that the situation is extremely urgent, my Battle Sword sect is preparing to send some disciples to the capital of the Yi country. Qin Wentian nodded his head lightly. Although he wouldn't be able to change anything with his current cultivation base, since Lin Shuai said this, it was obvious that he hoped for him to go out and roam the world, tempering himself. An instant later, Qin Wentian saw a group of silhouettes preparing to set off. It was none other than Yi Lingshuang and her companions. If you guys are together, no one would dare to plot against Lingshuang. Also, junior brother Qin, you have to remember an unwritten rule. In the Royal Sacred Region, there are many conflicts between the transcendent powers. Heavenly Dipper sovereigns can't interfere in the matters of celestial phenomenon ascendants, but if a Heavenly Dipper sovereign dies because of a conflict between disciples, celestial phenomenon ascendants are forbidden from taking revenge. If not, a war would easily erupt. Lin Shuai spoke, his words causing Qin Wentian's expression to stiffen. He had once experienced the conflict between the transcendent powers of Grand Xia. Once a conflict broke out between the upper echelons of Grand Xia, it would basically be a war between sections. Only when one side was annihilated would the conflict cease. Most probably, the transcendent powers of the Royal Sacred Region also feared war between sects, which was why there was such an unwritten rule. Chapter 524. Within the Battle Sword sect, over 10 young men rode on their flying swords and soared up into the air, transforming into beams of white light. This group of silhouettes were none other than the disciples of the Battle Sword sect who were heading to Yi. Qin Wentian was naturally among them. These disciples were all at the Heavenly Dipper realm. After all, Yi was an ancient country with a history of over 10,000 years. It was impossible for the Battle Sword sect to forcefully interfere with the internal affairs of an ancient country. It was only because of the friendship between them that these disciples were willing to accompany Yi Lingshuang on this trip. At the very least, they could ensure her safety. The leader of this group was a young man in black. His cultivation base was at the 8th level of Heavenly Dipper, and he was the personal disciple of Sword Sovereign Ling Tian, Duan Han. The status of the direct disciples of the Sword Master was generally higher. For example, Duan Han was ranked 9th under Sword Master Ling Tian, but if he was placed among the disciples of the First Mountain, he obviously wouldn't have such a high ranking. However, everyone still called him 9th senior brother. This was the treatment of the direct disciples of the Sword Master. Duan Han's demeanor was extremely cold, completely different from Lin Shuai. He exuded an unmasked sharpness and didn't like to talk much. Such silence added a sense of majesty to him. Junior sister, don't worry too much. Since the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley is here, she should be able to temporarily suppress Emperor Ye's injuries. A female disciple beside Yi Lingshuang consoled. Her name was Qiaoyu, and her relationship with Yi Lingshuang in the Battle Sword sect had always been pretty good. Emichim. Yi Lingshuang nodded lightly, but the worry in her eyes couldn't be masked. I heard that the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley is a peerless beauty. I'll be able to meet her soon. How exciting! Lu Yun's eyes gleamed, causing the others to stare at him with disdain. Although this fellow had a lecherous personality, his words always made others feel relaxed. You have no hope. Xiaoyu spoke with disdain. The Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley, a 5th-ranked alchemist. Even the geniuses from the various ancient countries and clans who wished to propose marriage would trample over the gates of the Medicine Sovereign Valley. However, the Medicine Sovereign Valley wouldn't allow them to enter. The most important thing is that the Holy Maiden herself of the Medicine Sovereign Valley likes me. For someone as handsome as me, I might be able to gain her favor. Lu Yun was currently dreaming. Qin Wentian felt pain in his heart when he heard their words as he involuntarily thought of Mo Qingcheng. The Pill Emperor Hall of the past was similar to the current Medicine Sovereign Valley. Such a transcendent power that specialized in pill concoction was a target that all the major powers wanted to recruit. However, he had no idea of Mo Qingcheng of the Pill of Qin. When he thought back to the time when the Pill Emperor Hall sent Qingcheng to be sacrificed as a sacrifice, flames of rage burned in his heart. He would definitely return to the Pill Emperor Hall. However, was Qingcheng still alive in this world? He had once investigated in Granxia, but there was no news of Mo Qingcheng at all. After he fainted during that battle, Mo Qingcheng also completely vanished, as though she had never appeared in Granxia before. The Pill Emperor Hall also didn't say anything about her. What are you thinking about? Don't tell me you also have designs on the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley? Lu Yun smiled as he glanced at Qin Wentian beside him. Qin Wentian shook his head as he asked, the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley is a 5th-ranked alchemist. Is this power very strong? Naturally, but I have no idea how strong they are exactly. Because the Medicine Sovereign Valley doesn't have any conflicts with others, nobody would find trouble with them. Hence, their status in the Royal Sacred Region is transcendent. Not only that, the Medicine Sovereign is a 5th-ranked alchemist. Even for the peak powers including the 9 great sects, who can guarantee that they wouldn't need his help one day. In terms of alchemy, the Medicine Sovereign Valley is even stronger than the Royal Sacred Sect, standing at the pinnacle of the Royal Sacred Region. Lu Yun slowly explained, his words causing Qin Wentian to silently nod his head. As expected of a transcendent power. On the way, Qin Wentian and Lu Yun chatted for quite a while. The main point was Lu Yun speaking while Qin Wentian listened. Other than introducing the situation in the Royal Sacred Region, Lu Yun also brought Qin Wentian to those good places where beauties were as common as the clouds. This caused Qin Wentian to be speechless. Half a day later, Qin Wentian and the rest finally arrived at the capital city of Yi. Within the inner city of the ancient country, soldiers clad in resplendent armor could be seen. The towering city gates seemed to be cast from gold, exuding a simple and unadorned aura. This was the core region of Yi, with the royal palace as well as numerous king residences. The security here was extremely tight, and experts were as common as the clouds. Halt! A loud shout rang out as a golden beam of light shot up into the skies. A general wielded a golden long spear, pointing it at those from the battle sword sect. "Let's go down," Yi Lingshuang spoke. The group of them descended as many armored soldiers soared up into the air, blocking their path. The general in the lead icily stated, "This is an important place for the royal clan of Yi." "Impudent," Yi Lingshuang coldly snorted. At this moment, she retracted her gentle demeanor, exuding an intense aura of imposingness as she icily spoke. "You actually dare to obstruct this princess?" Only now did that guard notice Yi Lingshuang. A cold smile flickered in his eyes. Now that the Qi King was in control, it wouldn't be long before this woman became a prisoner. Yet she still wanted to act like a princess here? However, this woman was truly beautiful, and since she joined the battle sword sect, they couldn't afford to offend her too much. "So it's Princess Lingshuang. This subordinate has failed in his duty and failed to recognize you. Please forgive me." That general spoke, yet there was no expression of guilt on his face. He turned his gaze onto the others as he spoke. "However, this is an important place for the royal clan. It's not too appropriate for princess to bring a bunch of strangers here." "Impudent, this princess brought a few friends here as guests. How can I allow you to talk so much?" Yi Lingshuang coldly snorted. "Offending your superiors, take him down for me." She was the princess of Yi. Yet a mere guard dared to be so impudent. This was an obvious provocation to her authority. Most probably, her royal father's current situation was extremely dire. Thinking of this, Yi Lingshuang grew even more anxious. But as her command rang out, none of the guards moved. Nobody obeyed. Duan Han's hands trembled. His black robes fluttered in the wind as a cold sword light flashed. Instantly, that guard's countenance drastically changed as he stabbed out with his long spear, emitting a brilliant golden light. Puji. A black-colored sword pierced through the center of his brows. Momentarily, the countenances of the guards drastically changed as they all erupted forth with tyrannical auras. This group of guards were actually all Heavenly Dipper sovereigns. However, Duan Han swept his gaze over. His deep eyes seemed to shoot out numerous sharp swords. Yi Lingshuang naturally understood Duan Han's intentions when she saw his methods. She coldly snorted, "This man offended his superiors, he shall be executed. If there's anyone else who dares to obstruct us, kill them all without mercy." As the sound of her voice faded, the group of guards stepped out. This time around, nobody dared to obstruct them. Those guards stared at the corpse of their commander as their countenances turned ashen. That was an expert at the 7th level of Heavenly Dipper. Yet he was killed with a single sword strike. Are the people of the battle sword sect really so tyrannical? Those guards felt their hearts trembling. Yet they didn't dare to say anything. They didn't expect Duan Han's methods to be so ruthless, directly killing him without saying a word. The members of the battle sword sect continued on their way. This royal territory was extremely majestic, and there were many king residences here, each of which occupied an area of several hundred miles. Occasionally, there would be powerful experts glancing at them in the air, causing Qin Wentian to have a clearer understanding of how powerful the Yi country was. Most probably, the experts from a single king's residence were sufficient to sweep through the entire Grand Xia Empire, let alone the entire Yi country. Finally, a majestic ancient kingdom appeared before their eyes. There were also towering city walls that seemed to be cast from pure gold. A group of figures walked out from within with smiles on their faces. "Why didn't you inform us beforehand that Princess Lingshuang is returning?" An expert in the lead laughed. However, Yi Lingshuang's countenance was extremely terrifying. This was someone from the Frost King Manor, one of her clan uncles. They actually appeared in the royal palace? From this, one could very well imagine how serious the situation here was. Most probably, the entire royal palace was already under their control. After all, the Frost King was extremely close to the Qi King. "I want to see my royal father," Yi Lingshuang faintly spoke. That expert glanced at the members of the battle sword sect beside Yi Lingshuang as he smiled. "The elites of the battle sword sect have truly brought light to our humble Yi country. Please enter the royal palace to take a rest." The others didn't bother with him. They came in such an imposing manner, and didn't bother to conceal their presence. Given how powerful the Yi country was, they should have long received news of their arrival. The members of the Battle Sword sect directly stepped through the air and entered the royal palace. Right now, in this majestic royal palace, there were armored soldiers everywhere, waiting for their arrival. From this, one could see how tense the situation was. Yi Lingshuang's heart was filled with worry for her father. She sped towards the direction of the Human Emperor Palace, like a gust of wind. Outside the Human Emperor Palace, there were currently many experts gathered here. It was as though all the hegemons of the various powers were gathered here. Yi Lingshuang's gaze swept over as she stared in a certain direction. Over there was a young man with a countenance like lightning. He was clad in royal robes and exuded an extraordinary air of imposingness. His deep eyes seemed to be able to see through people. Not only that, around this young man, there were several other experts of the same generation. All of them were extraordinary and exuded a tyrannical aura. Each and every one of them was an elite among the younger generation, incomparably dazzling. When the gazes of the young men from the Battle Sword sect met with their gazes, a terrifying sharpness permeated the air. Experts from the Violet Thunder sect. Qin Wentian silently mused. There was no need to doubt that the young man in royal robes was none other than the Prince Luyan spoke of. The son of the Qi King, a heavens chosen from the Violet Thunder sect, a demon-level genius of his generation. Those beside him were definitely from the same generation as him from the Violet Thunder sect. If one were to say that the Violet Thunder sect didn't participate in the dark, wanting to allow the Qi King to control the Yi country, no one would believe it. Yi Lingshuang's silhouette flickered as she flew towards the direction of the Human Emperor Palace. However, a group of silhouettes blocked her path. Princess, the Human Emperor is seriously ill. The Holy Maiden from the Medicine Sovereign Valley is currently treating him. Princess, please don't wait outside. My royal father is seriously ill. How can I not be by his side? It's fine. Yi Lingshuang spoke. The people in front could see the determination in her eyes as they opened up a path for her, blocking Duan Han and the others from advancing. You guys wait here for me. Yi Lingshuang turned her head and spoke to Duan Han and the others. Since they were already in the royal palace, there shouldn't be anyone who would dare to harm Yi Lingshuang in public. Hence, Duan Han and the others would wait here. Chapter 525. Qin Wentian stood in the midst of the Battle Sword sect, quietly immersing himself in the majesty of the ancient country. An ancient country that had existed for over 10,000 years was truly terrifying. Luyan told him on the way here that the elimination rate of the major powers in the Royal Sacred Region was extremely high. Occasionally, a few demon-level geniuses would appear, and once they matured, they would be able to topple the entire major power. Hence, many transcendent powers in the Royal Sacred Region would be annihilated in the annals of history. At the same time, there would also be many that would rise up, like the great waves washing away the sands. Those that could remain standing for 10,000 years would all be extremely terrifying. The ancient Yi country was naturally the same. Gazing at the group of young men from the Violet Thunder sect, they were also looking over. The person in the lead should be the son of the Qi King, the demon-level genius of the Violet Thunder sect, Yi Kongfan. His talent was terrifying, possessing a tribulation lightning bloodline, and an innate lightning physique that was extremely suitable for the ultimate arts of the Violet Thunder sect. Right now, his cultivation base was already at the 7th level of Heavenly Dipper, and his attacks were even more terrifying. This Yi Kongfan was clad in golden robes, exuding the aura of a king. His resplendent eyes seemed to contain a terrifying sense of danger. At this moment, Yi Kongfan's gaze landed on Duan Han. Staring at his aura, he emotionlessly stated, "The 9th personal disciple of Sword Sovereign Ling Tian, Duan Han." Yi Kongfan. Duan Han similarly stared at him, his black eyes gleaming with sharpness. A sharp smile could be seen in Yi Kongfan's eyes as he glanced at those from the Battle Sword sect. To think that members of the Battle Sword sect would have the time to visit my Yi country as guests. I have to properly entertain all of you. However, I'm sure that members of the Battle Sword sect have no interest in the mundane world, and only pursue the path of cultivation. Just nice, I've already invited the Holy Maiden to the battle arena of my Yi country. wanting to witness the atmosphere of martial arts. Now that the members of the Battle Sword sect have arrived, how about we head there together after the Holy Maiden exits? The competition in the royal sacred region was extremely cruel, and the country of Yi was naturally the same. The battle arena was a place where the martial path was held. Those who performed outstandingly would be heavily rewarded by the Yi country, and might even be recruited as subordinates. How would we dare to reject the prince's invitation? This Yi Kongfan was the son of the Qi king. Although he was also a heaven chosen of the Violet Thunder sect, the status of the son of the Qi king was naturally more prominent. I heard that the personal disciple of Sword Sovereign Ling Tian is extremely powerful. If he could display his prowess in the battle arena, I'm sure the people of Yi would be extremely excited. A young man from the Violet Thunder sect beside Yi Kongfan spoke, his words causing the eyes of those from the Battle Sword sect to gleam with sharpness. The status of a disciple of the Battle Sword sect was extraordinary. How could they fight against people from Yi in the battle arena? Wouldn't that be damaging their own status? If those from the Violet Thunder sect are willing, we can go up and seek guidance from them. Jiang Huai coldly stated, his words causing the young man from the Violet Thunder sect to laugh coldly. The battle intent radiating from both sides was so intense that it felt as though they would attack at the slightest disagreement. The competition between the 9 great sects was exceedingly intense. This kind of competition could be felt from within the Royal Sacred Sect to outside. Every time they met, there would always be a sense of conflict. This was especially so for those from the Battle Sword sect. Many people in the Royal Sacred Region claimed that although the Battle Sword sect had the lowest number of members, their members were all elites and their individual combat prowess was the strongest. Hence, the disciples of the other 8 great sects naturally weren't willing to accept this. Qin Wentian had already experienced the conflict between the 9 great sects back when he was in Xianqing City. Hence, he didn't find it strange at all. At this moment, an old man in long robes walked towards those from the Battle Sword sect as he politely stated, "This old man thanks all of you for protecting the princess back to her country." This old man was a subject of the human emperor's bloodline. When he saw the experts from the Battle Sword sect accompanying Yi Lingshuang over, how could he not understand the intentions of those from the Battle Sword sect? His heart was filled with gratitude. Lingshuang is my junior apprentice sister. This is something that should be done. Old sir, there's no need for you to worry. Duan Han returned the courtesy. An expression of gratitude appeared on the face of the old man as he continued. Now that the situation in Yi is unclear, I'll be so bold as to say this. If you were to meet with a calamity, I hope that all of you would be able to protect the princess, preventing her from acting recklessly. Right. Duan Han nodded. Old sir, please don't worry. Since the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley is willing to treat the human emperor, she would naturally be able to do so. The old man shook his head, his eyes flashing with worry. Evidently, he wasn't too optimistic. The human emperor's illness has already persisted for quite some time. The old man sighed. Duan Han and the rest furrowed their brows. Seems like the human emperor's condition was extremely serious. This old man didn't even have enough confidence in the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley. Not only that, Yi was an ancient country. Although the royal clan was embroiled in endless disputes, the bloodline of the human emperor was still extremely powerful. Most probably, the human emperor had already invited a powerful alchemist to treat the human emperor. Now that they had no choice but to invite the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley, they had no choice but to do so. The status of the Medicine Sovereign Valley was transcendent. It was extremely difficult for ordinary people to enter, let alone for the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley. Most probably the bloodline of the Yi country had paid a huge price. After waiting outside for a moment, Yi Lingshuang finally exited. Her eyes were slightly moist. It was evident that she had been crying. Beside her, there were several beautiful matrons dressed in palace robes. All of them were concubines. There were also 2 young men who resembled her, the princes of Yi. Yi Tan thanks everyone from the Battle Sword sect. This group of people arrived before the Battle Sword sect. The eldest prince Yi Tan bowed, appearing extremely courteous. Those from the Battle Sword sect were all from the younger generation. The courtesy could be light or heavy. It depended on whether the other party respected it or not. There's no need to be so polite, Duan Han replied in a light voice. His gaze then turned to Yi Lingshuang as he asked, Lingshuang, how's the situation? Royal father has been inflicted with a slow-acting poison, and the poison has already been in his body for a very long time. This poison is extremely well hidden, and when it erupts, it can claim the life of a supreme expert. In addition to the fact that royal father has just experienced a great battle, the poison has already spread throughout his entire body. Right now he's in a precarious situation. Yi Lingshuang's voice was hoarse as her eyes reddened. Even the experts from the Medicine Sovereign Valley have no solution? Qiao Yu asked. The Holy Maiden said that she can only temporarily suppress the poison. If we want to cure him. Yi Lingshuang didn't continue, but everyone understood what she meant. Their hearts trembled. This poison was able to claim the life of the human emperor. From this, one could see how terrifying it was. At this moment, another group of silhouettes walked out from the human emperor ancient hall. These silhouettes were all clad in white and were extremely beautiful, resembling celestial maidens. The gazes of everyone turned over. Yi Kongfan and the rest took the lead as he smiled. Thank you all for your hard work. Qin Wentian similarly inclined his head and stared in that direction, only to see a group of beautiful silhouettes. Most probably, these were the experts from the Medicine Sovereign Valley, who were protecting the Holy Maiden. Since they were all females, this was naturally for the sake of taking better care of the Holy Maiden. Following the gazes of the white-robed maidens, another 3 silhouettes appeared. The maidens on the left and right were all extremely beautiful. Yet at this moment, their radiance was completely overshadowed, because the maiden in the center was simply too dazzling. The moment she appeared, it was as though everything in the surroundings had to give way to her, losing their luster. Devastatingly beautiful, capable of toppling empires. Lu Yun's eyes gleamed as he stared at that figure. Not only him, everyone from the Battle Sword sect was also staring at the Holy Maiden. They couldn't find any words to describe the radiance radiating from her. These experts from the Battle Sword sect were all people with strong mental fortitude. But at this instant, they were all in a daze. However, Qin Wentian's heart pounded violently. He even forgot to breathe. After which, a radiant smile blossomed on his face as the huge rock in his heart was finally lifted. Qingcheng. Qin Wentian inclined his head to the heavens and sighed. After which, his silhouette flickered, akin to a bolt of lightning as he dashed towards the direction of the Holy Maiden. The Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley was actually none other than Mo Qingcheng. MHM. Upon seeing Qin Wentian's silhouette dashing out, the experts from the Battle Sword sect were all stunned. The experts from the Violet Thunder sect abruptly turned and stared at Qin Wentian, their countenances gleaming with a cold light. Impudent. Yi Kongfen coldly snorted. His palms blasted out as terrifying tribulation lightning manifested in the air, blasting towards Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian lifted his palms in response. Yet with a thunderous boom, his body was forced back several steps. Intense pain radiated from his palms. The might of that tribulation lightning had actually caused his entire arm to be numb. The maidens from the Medicine Sovereign Valley all coldly stared at Qin Wentian. Cold qi gushed forth, enveloping Qin Wentian as a suppressive pressure bore down on Qin Wentian. It was as though if Qin Wentian made the slightest movement, they would kill him on the spot. Junior brother. The experts from the Battle Sword sect all felt the killing intent. Their silhouettes flickered as they rushed forward, protecting Qin Wentian. However, Qin Wentian's gaze was only focused on Mo Qingcheng. It was as though he had forgotten everything else. Mo Qingcheng was still alive. What else in this world could be more beautiful than this? His smile was still as radiant as ever as he stared at the Holy Maiden who was the center of attention. The Holy Maiden from the Medicine Sovereign Valley stared at Qin Wentian. The instant his silhouette entered her vision, she felt an intense pain in her heart. Staring at Qin Wentian, her aura was as distant as ever, as though no one could get close to her. She was so dazzling, yet so foreign at the same time. How impudent. Seeing that you are a member of the Battle Sword sect, I temporarily won't bother with you. But if there's a next time, I will kill you without mercy. Yi Kongfen coldly snorted. After which he spoke. Holy maiden, let's head to the battle arena now. Mo Qingqing's silhouette froze there for a moment before she lifted her foot and departed. Those from the Violet Thunder sect all had cold smiles on their faces as they stared at Qin Wentian. Restrain yourself, that's the holy maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley. A young man from the Violet Thunder sect coldly snorted. Even those from the Battle Sword sect were unhappy. Qin Wentian was simply too impulsive, not caring about his image at all. Qin Wentian stood there in a daze. That smile was still on his face. Yet another bolt from the blue struck him. Mo Qingqing didn't recognize him? What was going on? Mo Qingqing was in the center of attention as she strolled around the royal palace. However, the two people beside her only saw Mo Qingqing clutching her chest as a dazed expression appeared on her face. It was as though she was in extreme pain. Holy maiden, what's wrong? A girl beside her asked in a low voice. His face is so familiar. My heart is in so much pain. Mo Qingqing mumbled, her words causing the countenances of the two beside her to stiffen. Back then, Mo Qingqing's life was in danger, and she was saved by the Medicine Sovereign. However, her memories were blurry, and other than her instinctive cultivation, she had forgotten everything else. They didn't say anything, but they had never seen such an expression on Mo Qingqing's face before. It was as though she had lost her soul. Her countenance was pale white. Mo Qingqing felt the pain in her heart intensifying as beads of cold sweat appeared on her forehead. How familiar, how familiar. She wanted to recall something. My head hurts so much. Mo Qingqing closed her eyes. Unknowingly, tears actually flowed down from the corners of her eyes. It was as though a bolt from the blue had struck her mind. Winter, snowflakes filled the air. A young man sat under a tree, looking handsome yet in a daze. He had no idea what the young girl beside him was thinking. The snowflakes were extremely beautiful. The two of them sat under the tree, staring at the ancient tree that was covered in snow. Innocent smiles could be seen on the faces of the young girl beside him. The young girl stretched her hands out, catching the falling snowflakes. Calling him a Dumbo, she then departed with a smile on her face. This scene was so beautiful that it broke the hearts of those who saw it. Holy maiden. At this moment, the two beside her turned pale with fright. When they saw Mo Qingqing opening her eyes, her face was actually filled with tears. Chapter 526. The maidens from the Medicine Sovereign Valley halted their steps because their holy maiden had also stopped, standing there motionlessly. Many turned their heads to look at the holy maiden as their countenances changed. One of the beautiful maidens even glanced at the two maidens beside her. What happened to the holy maiden? She simply couldn't imagine that the beautiful face of the holy maiden was actually filled with tears. What had happened? I don't know. The two maidens beside her were also flustered. But from the holy maiden's words, it seems that she has recalled something. The eyes of the maidens from the Medicine Sovereign Valley all flashed with sharpness. How powerful was the Medicine Sovereign? Although the holy maiden was heavily injured and her life was hanging by a thread, he still managed to save her, and even granted her a chance to be reborn. The Medicine Sovereign had also said that the holy maiden's memories might be a little blurry temporarily, but once she suffered an intense impact, she would recover sooner or later. Could it be that the holy maiden was about to recall her past memories? But when did she suffer an intense impact? They had always been following beside the holy maiden, and nothing had happened. The only unexpected incident was when that young man rushed to the side of the holy maiden. For such a minor matter, they wouldn't even care about it. Naturally, they wouldn't have thought that this would be the so-called intense impact. Their holy maiden still stood there, as though she had lost her soul. Her tears flowed unceasingly, and her hands were clutching her chest. At this moment, no one dared to disturb her. MHM. The eyes of Yi Kongfan and the rest gleamed with sharpness. They were all stunned by this scene. What had happened to this beautiful maiden? Nobody knew what had happened to Mo Qingqing. It was as though a bolt of lightning flashed through her mind as the face of that young man appeared unceasingly in her mind. The first time they met in the dark forest, she had saved a young man, yet she had silently left without acknowledging him. The second time they met was in the royal capital of Chu. At that time, the Emperor Star Academy and the other martial academies were recruiting students. She was sitting in a sedan, and after a brief glance she smiled sweetly at him. And after that, during the training of the Dark Forest Martial Academy, she had misunderstood him. Her heart was filled with intense guilt. Scenes after scenes flashed unceasingly in her mind, all the way until the Junlin banquet. The youth of the past had already grown up, and his wanton and unrestrained silhouette gradually imprinted itself into her heart. Gradually, she started to feel the feeling of love. That feeling was truly beautiful and sweet. She constantly thought about it, longed for it. But in the end he still managed to find her. For her, he traversed across boundless territories, killing Hua Xiaoyan of the Hua clan. For her, he was incomparably arrogant on the Heavenly Fate ranking battle platform, holding her hand, telling the world that she was his woman. At that moment, it was as though the entire world belonged to her. She would never be able to forget the resolute look in his eyes when countless gazes turned to look at her. It was as though he was announcing to the world that even if he had to become enemies with the entire world, he would still hold her hand tightly. Her tears stained her robes. Nobody knew what the holy maiden had experienced, what she recalled, what memories caused her heart to ache so much. Mo Qingqing clutched her chest. It was truly painful. She thought back to the final scene. Qin Wentian sacrificed his blood to the demon sword, transforming into a great rock and splitting the entire Pill Emperor Hall apart, all for the sake of saving her. She thought back to the scene where he was surrounded by countless experts and was heavily injured by a celestial phenomenon ascendant. How could she forget this? How could she forget everything? Abruptly, the spectators only saw Mo Qingqing turning and madly sprinting back the way she came. Her snow-white robes fluttered in the wind as her tears flowed unceasingly down her cheeks, dripping onto the ground. Holy Maiden. Those from the Medicine Sovereign Valley and the Violet Thunder sect all turned pale with fright as they chased after Mo Qingqing. What exactly happened? Why did things turn out like this? Mo Qingqing had experienced life all over again, and the pain in her heart was so deep that it pierced through her heart. But when Qin Wentian saw Mo Qingqing walking past him, he also felt an intense pain in his heart. How could this be? Qingqing actually didn't remember him? But when he thought of the scene where Qingqing's life hung by a thread, he understood. He didn't blame her. Wasn't it already a blessing from the heavens that Qingqing was still alive? Once, he was so afraid that she would leave him forever. But now, he once again saw that silhouette that he couldn't forget. This could already be considered a beautiful ending. Even if she didn't remember him, he still believed in Mo Qingqing. He believed that she didn't do this intentionally. She must have forgotten something because of her heavy injuries. But he also believed that Qingqing would definitely remember him. As he thought of this, a radiant smile appeared on Qin Wentian's face. Inclining his head, he stared at the sky. The sunlight cascaded down on his face, causing him to feel extremely comfortable. Being alive was the best, wasn't it? Junior brother, you have truly broadened the horizons of your senior brother. Although the Holy Maiden's beauty can topple empires, you can't just rush up to her like that. Lu Yun patted Qin Wentian's shoulder as he stared at Qin Wentian with a look of worship in his eyes. Junior brother, you are too impulsive. The status of the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley is extraordinary. As disciples of the Battle Sword sect, we should at least pay attention to our image. Qiao Yu persuaded. This Qin Wentian's actions were indeed a little too impulsive. Qin Wentian nodded his head lightly. He didn't explain anything, and a faint smile could be seen on his face. Yi Lingshuang stared at Qin Wentian speechlessly. It was one thing for this fellow to be lecherous, but why was he acting like this at such a time? The Holy Maiden was here to save her father. What would happen to her father if she offended those from the Medicine Sovereign Valley? Junior brother Qin, in the future, can you control your emotions for the sake of helping me? Yi Lingshuang couldn't blame Qin Wentian. After all, he was escorting her back to Yi together with the Battle Sword sect. She could only persuade him. Senior sister, it's all my fault. Qin Wentian could understand Yi Lingshuang. Her father's life might be in danger at any moment, and the people from the Medicine Sovereign Valley were her only hope. If he were to offend those from the Medicine Sovereign Valley because of a moment of rashness, Yiling Shuang naturally didn't want to see that. Thank you, junior brother Qin, for understanding me. Yiling Shuang softly spoke. Qin Wentian shook his head. There were several experts from Yi around him, and among them, there were some from the human emperor's faction. Their gazes were filled with unfriendliness. And as for those from the Qi King's faction, all of them had mocking smiles on their faces. Most probably, they were mocking him for not knowing what was good for him. Qingcheng. Sighing silently in his heart, Qin Wentian turned and spoke. Didn't those from the Violet Thunder sect say that they were going to the battle arena? Let's go. Everyone turned and headed in the direction of the battle arena. Yiling Shuang also accompanied them. As for the human emperor, he was taken care of by the various royal concubines. But at this moment, their gazes suddenly froze as they stood rooted to the spot. In front of them, a flawlessly beautiful silhouette was rushing over. Her countenance was so beautiful that it could topple empires. Just a single glance at her caused the hearts of those who saw her to shatter. The Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley? Everyone was stunned. What was going on? The Holy Maiden was actually crying in such a heartbroken manner, rushing over here. Qin Wentian was also stunned. But very swiftly after, a smile appeared on his face. He saw that Mo Qingcheng was currently looking in his direction. Mo Qingcheng halted her steps and stood in front of the crowd. She lowered her head slightly, wanting to use her hands to wipe away her tears, but to no avail. When she inclined her head, her tears were still flowing down unceasingly. Yet beneath her tears, a flawless smile could be seen. Such a beauty not only caused the men from the Battle Sword sect to be stunned. Even Yiling Shuang was deeply shocked. Qin Wentian took a step forward, walking to the side of Mo Qingcheng. He stretched out his hand and placed it on Mo Qingcheng's face, wiping away her tears as he smiled. Don't cry anymore, you've already become a big tabby cat. His voice was extremely gentle. Although Mo Qingcheng was smiling after hearing his words, she had no way to stop her tears. After which, she rushed forward once again and actually leaped into Qin Wentian's embrace, hugging him tightly as though she was afraid to lose him again. Those from the Battle Sword sect were completely stunned. They rubbed their eyes, feeling that this was all a dream. Lu Yun's mouth was so wide open as though he had just seen a ghost. He gulped down his saliva as he cursed in a low voice. Which bastard is using an illusion technique? Yiling Shuang's heart pounded violently. She simply didn't dare to believe her own eyes. The Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley was actually acting like a little girl, leaping into Qin Wentian's embrace. What was happening to this world? Holy Maiden. When those from the Medicine Sovereign Valley arrived, they were also stunned by the scene before them. It was as though they had been struck by lightning. All of them were as dumbstruck as wooden chickens as they stared at the Holy Maiden leaping into the embrace of the young man. That tear-stained face, was it because of him? That heart-wrenching pain, was it because of him? That intense feeling the Medicine Sovereign spoke of, was it because of a single glance at him in the midst of a sea of people? Their minds were in a state of chaos. They had no way to imagine what kind of feeling this was. Their Holy Maiden and this young man in front of them. Did they have an unforgettable relationship? In that case, the impulsiveness of this young man earlier wasn't because of the Holy Maiden's beauty, but because she was his lover. When those from the Violet Thunder sect arrived, all of their countenances turned ashen. They had some feelings for Mo Qingcheng, but they didn't expect things to turn out like this. Especially Yi Kongfan, as a heaven's chosen of the Violet Thunder sect, the Prince of Yi Country, the future Crown Prince. He wanted to take this opportunity to gain the affection of the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley, and take Mo Qingcheng down. But now, the scene before him had completely shattered his plans. Even a fool could tell that not only did the two of them know each other, they were a pair of lovers. However, how could the Holy Maiden fall in love with him? How could he be worthy of the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley? As he thought of this, a cold light flickered in Yi Kongfan's eyes. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Mo Qingcheng kept repeating these 3 words. She hated herself, she actually forgot about him. How could she forget him? Even now, she had no way to forgive herself, She hated herself. Qingcheng, don't be like this. Qin Wentian could feel the guilt in Mo Qingqing's voice as his heart trembled. How could he not feel that he owed Qingqing something? Mo Qingqing nodded her head, yet she still hugged Qin Wentian tightly. It was as though in this world, only the two of them were left. It was as though the others didn't exist. Chapter 527. The two of them hugged each other tightly, causing the others to be stunned speechless. They gradually understood that the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley and Qin Wentian must have had a very deep relationship. It was rumored that the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley was sent to the Medicine Sovereign Valley when she was on the verge of death. What exactly happened at that time? This young man from the Battle Sword sect should know. So the name of the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley is Qingcheng. What a pity, what a pity. Lu Yun sighed in sorrow. What are you lamenting about? Xiao Yu glared at this fellow. I'm sighing because she didn't meet this young master first. Lu Yun was incomparably vexed, causing the others to roll their eyes. This bastard was truly an extreme character. However, Yi Lingshuang had another thought in her mind. The Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley was actually Qin Wentian's lover. In that case, if Qin Wentian was willing to help her, the Holy Maiden would definitely do her best to treat her father's poison. She might even invite even more powerful experts from the Medicine Sovereign Valley to help. At that time, there might really be hope for her father. The Medicine Sovereign Valley was a transcendent existence. There were some supreme existences that even the Yi country couldn't invite. It was basically impossible to locate them. However, the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley would definitely know where they were. Qin Wentian and Mo Qingqing separated. Mo Qingqing stared at Qin Wentian's countenance as her gentle hands gently caressed Qin Wentian's face. She stared at Qin Wentian's body, as though she was afraid that Qin Wentian would lose a piece of flesh. When she thought of what Qin Wentian had to endure in the Pill Emperor Hall, she started crying again. There were thousands and thousands of words she wanted to say, but she didn't know where to start. Once again, she leaned into Qin Wentian's embrace. The people from the Medicine Sovereign Valley didn't know what they were feeling. Their Holy Maiden at this moment had completely transformed into a little woman, so gentle and exquisite. That gaze of hers was enough to melt the hearts of all the men in the world. What kind of deep love was that? All of them wanted to know, what was the story between the Holy Maiden and this young man from the Battle Sword sect? Pill Emperor Hall. I thought we would all die. Mo Qingqing sobbed softly. Never in her wildest dreams would she have thought that they would still be alive, and that there would be a day where they could reunite. Mo Qingqing's tear-stained face was filled with a smile. She was truly happy. She had never been so happy before. She felt that every strand of air was so fresh, and every ray of sunlight was so beautiful. It's all in the past now. Whatever the Pill Emperor Hall has done to you, I will make them pay for it sooner or later. The obsession in Qin Wentian's heart was exceedingly deep. The Pill Emperor Hall was like a thorn in his heart. Sooner or later, he would pull this thorn out, causing the Pill Emperor Hall to vanish from this world. Every time he thought of how the Pill Emperor Hall actually used Mo Qingqing's life to nurture corpses, he would feel a wave of pain in his heart. He almost thought that he had lost his lover. Meeting her today made him feel even more beautiful. After separating once again, Qin Wentian stared into Mo Qingqing's eyes, as though he couldn't get enough of her. Mo Qingqing's tears turned into a smile, and this smile of hers caused Qin Wentian's heart to be intoxicated. Holy Maiden. Behind her, those from the Medicine Sovereign Valley called out. Mo Qingqing turned back, and when she faced the crowd, she reverted back to her cold and lofty self, causing people to feel a sense of distance. She was so resplendent, causing people to feel as though she was unreachable. Yet at this moment, the eyes of the Holy Maiden flickered with a blissful smile. This was the first time the people from the Medicine Sovereign Valley saw such a side to the Holy Maiden. They couldn't help but sigh in their hearts. Seems like no one could stop the Holy Maiden's love for this young man from the Battle Sword sect. Given how much the Medicine Sovereign doted on her, he would definitely accommodate her. However, they weren't that happy in their hearts. Although Qin Wentian was a disciple of the Battle Sword sect, He was after all just an ordinary disciple. Although his demeanor was extraordinary, his cultivation base wasn't that high. This time around, he wasn't the leader of the group. And Mo Qingqing was the holy maiden of their medicine sovereign valley, the most dazzling maiden of them all. Initially, they thought that even if the holy maiden found her lover, he would at least be someone whose name shook the entire world, a supreme genius. Hence, when they saw Qin Wentian, they couldn't help but feel a trace of pity in their hearts. Although they wouldn't say anything, they couldn't help but feel uncomfortable. Ever since they entered the Yi country, Yi Kongfan's attitude towards the holy maiden was clear for all to see. Yi Kongfan was a heaven's chosen of the Violet Thunder sect, and had an extremely high status. He had a tribulation lightning bloodline, and an innate lightning physique. At such a young age, he was already at the 7th level of Heavenly Dipper. But even if such a person was matched up with the holy maiden, they still felt that it was insufficient. Only those few famous characters in the royal sacred region were qualified to be in a relationship with the holy maiden. However, Qin Wentian and Mo Qingqing had no idea what they were thinking. Even if they knew, why would they care? Junior brother Qin, your senior brother truly admires you. Lu Yun walked up and spoke. Since the holy maiden is your girlfriend, it's easier to talk. Do you want to introduce a few fairies to your senior brother? Your skin is truly thick, Xiao Yu speechlessly replied. Her words caused Qin Wentian to laugh. Isn't senior sister Ling Shuang beautiful? Why must you give up what's close at hand and seek what's far away? Junior sister doesn't like me at all. Lu Yun spoke in agony, his words causing those from the royal clan to be dumbfounded. They silently mused that this senior brother of the princess was truly a weirdo. Oh yeah, since the holy maiden is your girlfriend, does that mean junior sister Qing Er has any relationship with you? Lu Yun finally revealed his true intentions. He actually had designs on Qing Er. At this moment, he was thinking that this bastard Qin Wentian already had a holy maiden whose beauty could topple empires. Could it be that he still wanted to keep that ice lotus for himself? Wouldn't that be too much of a beast? Don't blame me for not reminding you. Qing Er's cultivation base is at the peak of the 6th level of Heavenly Dipper, and her mandate of space has already reached the perfection boundary. Senior brother, you should go and pursue her. Qin Wentian laughed. He was thinking that if Lu Yun dared to have any designs on Qing Er, what sort of miserable ending would he have? Lu Yun shivered. The gazes of those from the Battle Sword sect froze as well. That iceberg maiden who didn't like to speak was actually so powerful? Everyone, the preparations for the battle arena have already been completed. Why don't we head there together to take a look? At this moment, Yi Kongfan's voice rang out. Although he was extremely unhappy in his heart, a smile still hung on his face, concealing his emotions well. Mo Qingqing was still holding on to Qin Wentian's hand. She stared at Qin Wentian as an expression of inquiry appeared on her face. Let's go and take a look. Qin Wentian laughed. Mo Qingqing nodded her head in agreement as well. The rest of them then proceeded in the direction of the battle arena of the ancient nations. The competition in the royal sacred region was extremely cruel. Hence, the major powers were all fond of martial arts. Yi was the same as well. The battle arena of the Yi country was one of the most important places in the Yi country. It was extremely vast, filled with people as far as the eye could see. Within the battle arena, there were a total of 12 battle platforms. The battles on the 12 platforms would never cease, and every day, there would be countless people contending for supremacy on the platforms, striving for consecutive victories and obtaining rewards from the Yi country. There were even some who were recruited by the Yi country. Not only for the Yi country, there were also many major powers in the Yi country that would gather here. They would similarly throw out olive branches to those with outstanding performances in the battle arena, hoping to recruit them into their sections. Naturally, there would also be occasional conflicts between the disciples of these major powers, which would also be resolved in the battle arena. In the middle of the vast battle arena, there was a pathway leading to the best seats in the spectator stands. There were armored guards on both sides of the pathway, and those who weren't members of the royal clan weren't allowed to sit there. At this moment, a row of silhouettes appeared on the pathway. Instantly, the spectators in the battle arena all inclined their heads, and there were even countless people who stood up. At this moment, the entire battle arena turned silent. They had already heard the news that today, the son of the Qi King, Yi Kongfan from the Violet Thunder sect, would be inviting the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley to the battle arena. This group of people all exuded an extraordinary aura. This was especially so for that beautiful maiden whose beauty could topple empires. She should be none other than the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley. In front of the Medicine Sovereign Valley, there was a group of young men leading the way. The one in the middle exuded the noblest aura, clad in royal robes, and was none other than the crown prince of the Qi King, Yi Kongfan. The armored guards on both sides knelt on one knee as they respectfully called out, "We pay our respects to the crown prince, and welcome the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley." Their voices shook the heavens and earth, akin to heavenly thunder. This caused countless people to turn their gazes onto Yi Kongfan and the Holy Maiden, Mo Qingqing, as they viewed the two of them together. These two were truly a pair of absolute geniuses. If they could get together, it would surely become a beautiful story. Rise. Today, I've invited the Holy Maiden here to admire the magnificent scenery of the battle arena of my Yi country. I hope that the young elites of my Yi country will be able to display their brilliance, displaying the magnificence of the martial path of my Yi country. Yi Kongfan's voice reverberated throughout the entire arena. At this moment, the eyes of those from the human emperor clan beside Yi Lingshuang flickered with coldness. Yi Lingshuang's brows were tightly furrowed, appearing extremely unhappy. Kneeling to the crown prince, but not to the princess, Qin Wentian stood beside Mo Qingqing. He glanced at the seats in front of him. Two of the most distinguished seats were naturally reserved for him and Mo Qingqing by Yi Kongfan, while the other two seats were reserved for him and Mo Qingqing. Qin Wentian furrowed his brows as a cold light flickered in his eyes. This Yi Kongfan was putting in so much effort to create such a commotion, suppressing the host. Firstly, it was to emphasize his status. Where did he place the real princess of Yi, Yi Lingshuang? Secondly, it was to create a commotion for him and Mo Qingqing, making others feel as though they were a pair of absolute geniuses, creating a misconception that they were plotting something. The vast crowd in the arena also noticed Qin Wentian, who was beside Mo Qingqing. Although the Holy Maiden was being protected, there was actually a young man beside her. How could the crowd not be suspicious as they silently speculated about his identity? An extremely strange scene appeared in the arena. The spectators were all staring in this direction, while Yi Kongfan and the others also halted their steps. Everyone was waiting to see how Yi Kongfan would arrange the seats. "Holy Maiden, please?" Indeed, Yi Kongfan stretched his hand out, gesturing for Mo Qingqing to sit on one of the two most valuable seats. If Mo Qingqing sat down, he would definitely sit beside her. Mo Qingqing furrowed her brows. Although she wasn't a scheming person, she naturally understood Yi Kongfan's intentions. If she sat down and Yi Kongfan sat beside her, where would Qin Wentian be placed? This was something she couldn't accept. Chapter 528. When Qin Wentian saw Yi Kongfan taking the initiative to invite him, the coldness in his eyes grew even more intense. He then spoke, "Princess Lingshuang is the host. It's only right for her to take a seat first." As soon as he finished speaking, the atmosphere suddenly became subtle. Today, Yi Kongfan's original intention was to usurp the host's position, intentionally causing Yi Lingshuang to lose face. But now that Qin Wentian allowed Yi Lingshuang to sit, didn't this mean that he would have to sit beside Yi Lingshuang? Yi Kongfan's eyes flashed with an undetectable coldness. He inclined his head and stared at Qin Wentian, only to hear Mo Qingqing saying, "Princess, please go ahead first." The soldiers on both sides exuded an oppressive aura, as a faint killing intent permeated the air. These soldiers were all extremely powerful. Clearly this was arranged by Yi Kongfan long ago. But at this moment, Mo Qingqing also asked Yi Lingshuang to sit, causing Yi Kongfan to be placed in a difficult position. Since the Holy Maiden is so polite, "Princess, please take a seat first, lest the Holy Maiden has to wait there." Those beside Yi Lingshuang naturally urged Yi Lingshuang to take a seat. How could they weaken the prestige of the royal clan? Now that they had the help of Qin Wentian and the Holy Maiden from the Medicine Sovereign Valley, it was naturally for the best. If not, if Yi Kongfan really sat on the throne, Yiling Shuang wouldn't be able to remain here. Yiling Shuang stared at Yi Kongfan, after which she lifted her feet and walked towards one of the main seats. At this moment, she could clearly feel the pressure boring down on her. But as the princess of Yi, she had to bear the pressure. No matter what, she couldn't allow the Qi King to have his way. A cold wind gusted by. The atmosphere here was extremely strange. Everyone could feel it. Yiling Shuang walked down step by step. Yi Kongfan's eyes flickered and finally, he smiled as he spoke. "Princess, please." As the sound of Yi Kongfan's voice faded, the pressure on Yi Kongfan instantly dissipated as though everything had returned to normal. This caused Yiling Shuang to feel even more shock in her heart. Yi Kongfan's control over the situation had far surpassed her expectations. Sitting on the host's seat, Yiling Shuang turned her head and smiled at Mo Qingqing. "Holy Maiden, please be seated. Sit beside me." Mo Qingqing smiled at Qin Wentian, who was beside her as she sat down. Qin Wentian sat beside her, while Yi Kongfan sat one seat below Yiling Shuang. The others all sat down as well, and only then did the atmosphere here relax. "Holy Maiden, there's a total of 12 battle platforms in the Yi country's battle arena. You can challenge each other or challenge the warriors of our Yi country. There are experts of all cultivation realms on these 12 battle platforms, and everyone has a chance to display their strength, becoming the center of attention." In the history of the Yi country, there were countless people who rose to fame after a single battle, and there were even some who became the pillars of the Yi country. Yi Kongfan smiled as he introduced to Mo Qingqing. Mo Qingqing's countenance was emotionless as she stared downwards. The battles on the battle platforms were extremely intense, and there were indeed many outstanding characters. In fact, the combat prowess of the experts in the middle arena seemed to be exceptionally strong. The 3 battle platforms in the middle are the 10 victories battle platform, the 50 victories battle platform, and the 100 victories battle platform. Only those who won 10, 50, and 100 battles consecutively would have the qualifications to fight on those 3 battle platforms. Those 3 battle platforms would attract the most attention. Yi Kongfan noticed Mo Qingqing's gaze as he explained. Although Yiling Shuang sat on the host's seat, it was as though he was the master of this place. The combat prowess of those on the 100 victories battle platform are all extremely powerful, but sometimes, demon-level characters would appear. Not only would they be able to ascend to the 100 victories battle platform, they would even dare to jump levels and challenge the other participants. Such characters would be directly recruited by our royal clan. Yiling Shuang introduced to Mo Qingqing. The Yi country has existed for 10,000 years, and the spirit of martial arts is truly admirable. Mo Qingqing replied, her words causing a look of surprise to flash past Yiling Shuang's eyes. Before this, she had heard that the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley was cold and arrogant, silent and taciturn. Regardless of nobility or when the princess consort spoke to her, she wouldn't bother with them at all. However, no one dared to have any objections. After all, her status was special, and she had a country-toppling beauty akin to a celestial maiden. But at this moment, Mo Qingqing was actually willing to chat with her. Yiling Shuang knew that even though she was a princess, she didn't have that much face. The only possibility was that this was because of her junior apprentice brother, Qin Wentian. Seems like this holy maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley's feelings for her junior apprentice brother Qin Wentian weren't ordinary. If not, she wouldn't have thought of him for so many things. This made her feel that the life and death of her royal father, Qin Wentian, depended on Qin Wentian. Junior brother Qin, a few days ago, you suddenly followed senior brother Lin Shuai into the battle sword sect. Not only that, you were even accompanied by the elders of the sect. I'm really curious, where did you come from exactly? Senior brother Lin Shuai clearly has high hopes for you. Yiling Shuang stared in the direction of Qin Wentian, as did Mo Qingqing. She had many questions she wanted to ask Qin Wentian, but right now there were too many people around, and it wasn't convenient for her to do so. Qin Wentian naturally understood their thoughts. He smiled and replied, back then during the battle at the Pill Emperor Hall, You should know that I was heavily injured. It was Qing, who helped me, allowing me to regain my human form. After that, Grand Xia fell into chaos and I established my own power, destroying the Great Qin clan. However, I was also heavily injured. Sadly, I didn't manage to destroy the Pill Emperor Hall. After that, I roamed the world and came to the Xian King city of Granshang. By a stroke of good fortune, I coincidentally encountered the recruitment of the 9 great sections. It was at that time that I was brought to the Battle Sword sect by senior brother Lin Shui and the others. The others didn't really understand what Qin Wentian meant when he said that he had regained his human form. But how could Mo Qingcheng not understand? Although Qin Wentian spoke in such a calm tone, it was clear that he had experienced many storms in his life. Yet, she actually wasn't by his side. In that case, the person flaunting his might in Xian King City was none other than you. An expert from the Violet Thunder sect coldly snorted as he stared at Qin Wentian, causing the gazes of the crowd to turn to him. A few days ago, the Battle Sword sect caused quite a commotion when they went to Xian King City. All the 9 great sects sent people there, including one of my martial uncles from the Violet Thunder sect. During the battle at the Xian King Manor, there was one person who was exceptionally arrogant, and even killed several members of my Violet Thunder sect. After that, he was forcefully brought away by the Battle Sword sect. That person didn't know the details, he only heard his fellow disciples discussing this matter. At that time, he hated himself for not being in Xian King City. Who would have thought that he would encounter that person here? Those from the Violet Thunder sect were already extremely unhappy with Qin Wentian. Now that they heard of this matter, their eyes flashed with coldness as a faint pressure gushed towards Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian's eyes flickered. He could see the killing intent in his opponent's eyes. He icily replied, "On the battle platform, life and death are determined by fate. The Violet Thunder sect wanted to kill me, yet they died in my hands. They were useless." As the sound of his voice faded, the eyes of the crowd flickered with coldness as their battle intent intensified. Qin Wentian actually said that the Violet Thunder sect was useless and deserved to die. This was simply smacking their faces. Boasting shamelessly. Beside the 100 victories battle platform, there are many people who have obtained 100 victories. If you have the strength, do you want to challenge them? That expert from the Violet Thunder sect stared at Qin Wentian, his eyes flashing with lightning. Who the hell do you think you are? Do the disciples of my Battle Sword sect need to use the Yi country to prove themselves? Don't forget that back then on the sacred battle platform of the Royal Sacred Region, your Violet Thunder sect was like a stray dog. A young man from the Battle Sword sect mocked. In the Royal Sacred Region, the atmosphere of martial arts wasn't only limited to the Yi country. It was the entire sacred region. In the entire Royal Sacred Region, the sacred battle platform was undoubtedly the highest. On the sacred battle platform, the various transcendent powers of the Royal Sacred Region would often contend against each other. Even the disciples of the 9 great sects would often fight on it. Once, when the disciples of the 9 great sects contended on the sacred battle platform, the Battle Sword sect was the strongest. Hence, the combat prowess of the Battle Sword sect had always been the strongest. For those supreme geniuses whose names shook the entire Royal Sacred Region, many of them were also famous on the sacred battle platform. They were unrivaled among those on the same cultivation level, and were even invincible when fighting against those at a higher cultivation level. They could be said to be true absolute geniuses, sweeping through all their opponents. When this person mentioned the sacred battle platform, it caused many from the Medicine Sovereign Valley to recall those supreme geniuses. Yi Kongfan from the Violet Thunder sect, Shang Tong from the Grand Shang Empire. None of them belonged to the category of absolute geniuses. In the eyes of these people from the Medicine Sovereign Valley, only those characters were worthy of their holy maiden. These words were undoubtedly a provocation to the Violet Thunder sect. The experts from the Violet Thunder sect all radiated a powerful battle intent, as they stared at Qin Wentian, and the person who spoke. If you have the guts, you can go up and spar with me. Qin Wentian swept his gaze over. The people from the Violet Thunder sect had provoked him time and time again, and Yi Kongfan even lusted after Mo Qingcheng. Even a clay figurine would have anger, let alone someone like him. He stared at the person who spoke. His cultivation base was at the 5th level of Heavenly Dipper. An expression of disdain involuntarily flashed in his eyes as he stated, "You are not qualified to fight against me, Qin." "You." That person was infuriated, pointing his finger at Qin Wentian. No matter what, he was a genius from the Violet Thunder sect. How arrogant was he? Yet Qin Wentian actually had such a disdainful expression on his face. However, his state of heart was also extraordinary. He instantly suppressed his anger as he mocked. To think that the people from the Battle Sword sect are all cowards. Don't be rude. Does my Battle Sword sect need to prove anything to your Violet Thunder sect? Lu Yun drank a mouthful of wine as a look of disdain appeared on his face. Those from the Battle Sword sect are our guests, don't be rude. Yi Kongfan faintly spoke. Only then did that person coldly laugh. You're right, we shouldn't let our guests lose too much face, let alone in front of the Holy Maiden. However, given how graceful the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley is, I always thought that the companion of the Holy Maiden would be a heaven chosen of the younger generation. Who would have thought that? That person shook his head as he sighed. What a pity. Killing intent flickered in Qin Wentian's eyes when he heard this. However, he only saw Imo Qingqing lightly pulling his hand. Turning his head, Qin Wentian only saw Imo Qingqing smiling gently at him. Evidently, Imo Qingqing wouldn't care about the words and gazes of others. In her heart, Qin Wentian was once unrivaled in Grand Xia. Now, in the royal sacred region, he would also rise above the rest sooner or later. Not only that, even if Qin Wentian was a mediocre person, so what of it? He was still the person she loved the most. Turning her gaze over, Imo Qingqing stared at those from the Violet Thunder sect as a cold glint of light flickered in her eyes. These people wanted to drive a wedge between her and Qin Wentian, insulting Qin Wentian with their words. Yet they didn't know that they had violated a great taboo, truly angering her. Princess, before the injuries of the human emperor recover, I will continue to stay here. In addition, I will send someone to seek help from the seniors from the Medicine Sovereign Valley. I can only trouble Princess for a little longer. Imo Qingqing glanced at Yi Lingshuang as she spoke. As the sound of her voice faded, Yi Lingshuang was overjoyed. Her heart pounded as she replied. Why would Holy Maiden say such words? If this is the case, Lingshuang will be eternally grateful. The entire Yi country will be grateful to Holy Maiden for your kindness. At this moment, Yi Lingshuang's heart was filled with shock. Seems like she had still underestimated Qin Wentian's position in Imo Qingqing's heart. Yi Kongfan's countenance was extremely unsightly to behold. He glanced at the person who spoke earlier, his eyes filled with a bone-piercing coldness. His words of provocation towards Qin Wentian had caused Imo Qingqing to make up her mind to help the human emperor. How could Yi Kongfan not understand? There was no longer any hope for him to pursue the Holy Maiden. Chapter 529. Imo Qingqing's words caused the atmosphere to grow even more tense. Those from the Violet Thunder sect all felt resentment in their hearts. They wanted nothing more than to fight against those from the Battle Sword sect. These disciples of the Battle Sword sect were all arrogant, and had their eyes on the top of their heads. They didn't even place the other 9 great sects in their eyes. Although there were grudges between the 9 great sects, the ones they hated the most were none other than those from the Battle Sword sect. This man is truly powerful. His cultivation base is only at the 5th level of Heavenly Dipper, yet his combat prowess is so terrifying. At this moment, Yi Lingshuang spoke, breaking the silence. She turned her gaze onto the platform, only to see an expert whose entire body glowed with a golden light. Of course he's powerful. This man cultivates the invulnerable golden body, his defense is immensely strong, and when he attacks, runic light illuminates the skies. Yi Kongfan laughed. This man has already won 100 victories today, yet he still can't find a match for him. The spectators all had strange expressions on their faces when they heard Yi Kongfan's words. It seemed that Yi Kongfan was extremely familiar with this man. This man has already joined the Qi King Manor. And indeed, a person beside Yi Kongfan spoke. Does anyone from the Battle Sword sect wish to give it a try? There's no need to. He will lose for sure in the next battle. Qin Wentian calmly spoke. A smile of disdain flashed in Yi Kongfan's eyes. He was very clear of the strength of that golden-robed young man. How could he lose? His gaze drifted over to the platform, only to see a skinny young man clad in black robes appearing. This person exuded an extremely cold aura. Just a single glance at him would cause one to feel a chill down their spine despite the fact that his aura was only at the 4th level of Heavenly Dipper. This man is extremely dangerous, but with a cultivation base at the 4th level of Heavenly Dipper, he will lose for sure. An expert from the Violet Thunder sect spoke, causing the gazes of the spectators to turn over. On the platform, the sound of tsunami-like roars could be heard, causing Qin Wentian's eyes to flash with sharpness. Since these two were already on the platform, it was clear that they were famous and had already obtained the glorious battle record of 100 victories. I'm afraid you will be disappointed, Qin Wentian replied calmly. Very soon, a battle broke out between the two of them. The golden-bodied young man's entire body shone with golden brilliance, and the terrifying shadow of the indestructible golden body appeared behind him. When he attacked, his palm energy was monstrous, as if it could shatter the heavens and earth. It was extremely overbearing. The black-robed young man didn't clash head-on with him, and only dodged ceaselessly. He moved between the real and the fake, and his footsteps were exquisite. Strands of bloody light flickered and suffused the battlefield. The golden-robed young man's attacks grew more and more violent, as if he wanted to destroy everything in his path and finish off his opponent. When he struck out with his palms, golden runic light transformed into a giant palm imprint that wanted to crush and annihilate everything in front of him. The violent storm of attacks blasted the black-robed young man into retreat, and he would even be struck by the powerful winds occasionally, causing him to spit out blood. Seems like your judgment isn't that good. This isn't a battle on the same level. The expert from the Violet Thunder sect stared at Qin Wentian as he mocked. This battle is indeed on a different level. It's about to end. Qin Wentian's voice was as calm as ever, causing the expert from the Violet Thunder sect to laugh coldly. What a stubborn mouth. Such an obvious result, yet you still want to twist words and force logic. I want to see if after this battle ends, you will be the one to slap your own face. Qin Wentian stared at his opponent as he spat out a word. Idiot. You. No matter how strong the endurance of the expert from the Violet Thunder sect was, he couldn't endure Qin Wentian's repeated provocations. Not only that, this black-robed young man was already destined to lose, yet he still wanted to distort the truth? This made them want to give Qin Wentian a good thrashing. If it wasn't for the Holy Maiden being here, someone like you would have already died countless times over. The killing intent in that expert's eyes flickered as he spoke. I heard that the Violet Thunder sect is also one of the 9 great sections. Who would have thought that there would be so many idiots here? I'm ashamed to be in the same group as you all. Qin Wentian was as calm as ever as he calmly spoke. However, his words could drive people crazy. Even those from the Medicine Sovereign Valley and Battle Sword sect couldn't understand where Qin Wentian's confidence came from. It was obvious that the black-robed young man was at a disadvantage, yet he was so confident that he would win. I hope the lover of the Holy Maiden isn't someone who only knows how to use his tongue. Those from the Medicine Sovereign Valley sighed in their hearts. This Qin Wentian's eloquence was truly impressive, able to infuriate people with just a few words. But if he didn't have true strength, it would truly be too disappointing. After this battle ends, I will definitely give you a good smack on your face. An expert from the Violet Thunder sect couldn't help but to speak up when he saw Qin Wentian's unrestrained insults towards the Violet Thunder sect. He wanted to directly smack Qin Wentian's face. Who asked him to humiliate the Violet Thunder sect like this? Qin Wentian merely coldly glanced at him before turning his attention back to the battle platform. The attacks of the golden-robed young man grew increasingly violent, and the battle was about to end. Those from the Violet Thunder sect had smiles on their faces, while those from the Battle Sword sect were frowning. The disappointment in the hearts of those from the Medicine Sovereign Valley grew even more intense. Only Mo Qingqing believed in Qin Wentian's judgment, not only because of her relationship with Qin Wentian, but also because she was familiar with the black-robed young man. Rumble. The violent sounds of attacks rocked the entire battle platform. The golden-robed young man was about to claim the life of the black-robed young man. But at this moment, no one noticed that the eyes of the black-robed young man flashed with an incomparably cold light. In the next instant, the golden-robed young man's attack froze in midair as his countenance turned ashen. Boom! The black-robed young man stomped down, slamming his palm into the golden-robed young man's body. In an instant, the golden-robed young man's body withered up. His eyes were wide open as he fell onto the battle platform, dying on the spot. A victor of 100 victories was actually killed by someone who jumped levels to kill him. The hearts of the spectators were all filled with shock. Those from the battle sword sect all had gleams of sharpness on their faces as they stared at Qin Wentian in bewilderment. How could he be so confident that he could predict the outcome of the battle? Those from the Medicine Sovereign Valley also had gleams of sharpness on their faces. Seems like Qin Wentian's judgment wasn't what they had imagined. As for those from the Violet Thunder sect, their countenances all turned ashen. The ending of this battle caused them to feel extremely uncomfortable. Their faces were burning with a burning sensation. Thinking back to the exchange of words earlier, how ironic could it be? Haha, this face smacking is truly satisfying. Didn't you all know how to shout arrogantly? Why are you all mute now? Lu Yun laughed uproariously. The experts from the Violet Thunder sect all felt extremely uncomfortable. This was simply a great humiliation. Senior brother, why must you be so calculative with a bunch of idiots? Wouldn't that lower your status? At this moment, Qin Wentian didn't even glance at those from the Violet Thunder sect. He was persuading Lu Yun, but his words were extremely piercing to the ears of those from the Violet Thunder sect. Kongfan, although they are our guests today, how dare they act so overbearingly, humiliating us with their words? If our Violet Thunder sect still doesn't have anything to say, wouldn't we become the laughingstock of others? A 5th-level Heavenly Dipper sovereign from the Violet Thunder sect coldly spoke. How laughable. Clearly, you guys were the ones who thought you were infallible, and even said that you would slap my junior brother's face after this battle. In the end, you were the ones who were slapped. Yet you still want to bite back at us? Today, I've truly experienced how powerful the Violet Thunder sect is. Lu Yun coldly snorted. Seems like junior brother's words were right. We are all from the 9 great sects, yet we are ashamed to be in the same group as these people. There's no meaning in squabbling. Although you guys are our guests today, since you guys dared to humiliate our sect, let's see who's stronger. Yi Kongfan's demeanor was extraordinary, wanting to toss aside everything with a single sentence, wanting to spar with the experts from the Battle Sword sect. But before that, go invite that person over first. This person is extraordinary. Yi Kongfan instructed his underling. Yes, Crown Prince. One of the guards flew towards the direction of the battle platform, wanting to invite the black-robed young man over. Although he didn't know what methods this black-robed young man used, the fact that he killed the golden-robed young man was clear to all. Yi Kongfan naturally wanted to recruit him as a subordinate and replace the golden-robed young man. The guard received the order and left, and not long after, the black-robed young man was invited over. Looking at the black-robed young man from such a close distance, Yi Kongfan discovered that the black-robed young man's eyes were filled with an unfathomable loftiness, exuding a dangerous coldness. It was as though there were no signs of life in his eyes, and they were extremely cold. If it was someone with a cultivation base lower than him, the look in his eyes would definitely cause them to shiver. Your strength isn't bad. Are you interested in joining the royal clan of my Yi country? I can recommend you to join my Violet Thunder sect. Given your strength, you should be able to pass the test. Yi Kongfan spoke to the black-robed young man. However, Yi Kongfan discovered that the black-robed young man wasn't even looking at him. That pair of deep eyes was staring at a seat above him. Yi Kongfan frowned, following the gaze of the black-robed young man, only to see that the person the black-robed young man was looking at was actually Qin Wentian. Why are you in Yi? The black-robed young man asked Qin Wentian, before glancing at Mo Qingcheng, feeling somewhat taken aback. I'm currently in the Battle Sword sect. This time around, I came to Yi because one of my senior apprentice sisters is the princess of Yi. As for you, I didn't expect to meet you here. Qin Wentian was taken aback. "There's no place for me in Grand Xia anymore," the black-robed young man calmly replied. However, Qin Wentian didn't know that during this period of time when he was away, the black-robed young man had caused a huge storm in Grand Xia, causing people to tremble in fear upon hearing his name. It was unknown how many experts were chasing after him. "What are your plans in the future?" Qin Wentian didn't probe further, he calmly asked. "In the future?" The black-robed young man contemplated for a moment before continuing. "After Lu Min's death, I no longer have any worries in my heart. In the future, I will follow you." A strange expression appeared on Qin Wentian's face, as sympathy appeared in his heart. When he thought back to that day outside the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia, he couldn't help but to sigh in his heart. He didn't expect that Mu Feng's only kin would meet such an end. The heavens were truly too cruel to Mu Feng. This black-robed young man was none other than the demon-level genius on the fate rankings of Grand Xia, Mu Feng, the disciple of the Poison Monarch. Back then, Di Feng disguised himself as Qin Wentian and caused the deaths of his entire family. In order to take revenge, Mu Feng almost poisoned Qin Wentian to death. After that, Qin Wentian didn't kill Mu Feng, and even helped him find the culprit, Di Feng, to avenge him. At that time, Mu Feng knew that his life was saved by Qin Wentian. After that, he followed Di Tian, Yun Mingyi and the rest into the ancient royal tomb of Grand Xia. Mu Feng was the inheritor of the Blood Emperor. Who would have thought that today he would arrive in Yi? Chapter 530. As to why Qin Wentian was so confident in Mu Feng, it was naturally because of his proficiency in poison. Once, he had personally witnessed Mu Feng killing people, without them noticing. Even he himself had been poisoned by Mu Feng before. Back then on the Heavenly Fate Rankings platform, Si Qiong's combat prowess clearly surpassed Mu Feng's. But in the end, although he won, he paid a heavy price and was almost killed by Mu Feng's poison. Si Qiong was someone who could cause others to tremble in fear. Even those whose combat prowess was much stronger than him would easily die in his hands. This was especially so under the circumstances where they didn't know what type of poison he was proficient in. Not only that, Mu Feng's personality had changed, becoming colder and colder. Now that he had obtained the inheritance of the Blood Emperor, he would only grow stronger. Hence, when Qin Wentian saw Mu Feng being suppressed in every aspect, he still felt that Mu Feng would definitely die in his hands. And the truth was indeed so. At the very end, Mu Feng managed to kill Si Qiong, allowing him to retreat unscathed. Upon hearing Mu Feng say that the girl who dragged him along all those years ago had also died, Qin Wentian could only sigh in his heart. He lightly nodded his head. "Fine, you can follow me from now on." Mu Feng didn't say anything more. He quietly walked to the back of Qin Wentian, like a shadow. If one didn't pay attention, it was as though he didn't exist at all. Yi Kongfan didn't expect such a situation to occur. He initially wanted to recruit Mu Feng, yet Mu Feng couldn't even be bothered with him, choosing to follow Qin Wentian instead. This was the very same Qin Wentian whom they had a grudge against earlier. Without a doubt, this made Yi Kongfan hate Qin Wentian even more. Those from the Battle Sword sect and Medicine Sovereign Valley also felt their hearts trembling. They didn't expect that the delicate-looking young man beside Mo Qingqing would have such a side to him. His cultivation base was only at the peak of the 4th level of Heavenly Dipper. Yet a character like Mu Feng didn't even consider Yi Kongfan's invitation, choosing to follow him instead. This caused them to re-evaluate Qin Wentian. The holy maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley, Qing'er, was deeply in love with him. Not only that, the Battle Sword sect also knew that a similarly beautiful Qing'er existed beside Qin Wentian. Yi Lingshuang thought of how Qin Wentian comprehended 14 sword strikes in just 5 days. She couldn't help but silently speculate in her heart. Most probably none of them truly understood Qin Wentian. What had he done in the desolate Grand Xia? This caused Qin Wentian to gradually become more and more mysterious in their hearts. After all, for a woman like Mo Qingqing, just based on her beauty, even if she didn't have the status of the holy maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley, she would still be the moon surrounded by stars. And for a terrifying character like Mu Feng, No matter what relationship he had with Qin Wentian, he was still willing to follow Qin Wentian. Not only that, the battle sword sect sent out so many experts to the Xian King city, including senior Lin Shuai and an important elder under sword sovereign Ling Tian. Yet they only brought back 2 people. One was Qing'er and the other was Qin Wentian. Could there be more than meets the eye? Back then, how heavily injured was Mo Qingcheng? Who was it that sent her to the Medicine Sovereign Valley? Who was it that personally treated her? Even the Medicine Sovereign had to expend a great deal of energy in order to treat her? Who had the face to do so? After all, when Mo Qingcheng was heavily injured, it was impossible to tell her talent. One could only say that the person who sent her to the Medicine Sovereign Valley was extraordinary. Yi Lingshuang wasn't a fool. The more she thought about it, the more shocked she felt. She cast a deep glance at Qin Wentian beside her. There were many people in the battle sword sect who weren't ordinary. Naturally, they would also think that this junior brother of theirs was different from the rest. However, those from the Violet Thunder sect wouldn't think so much. Right now, they only felt that they had lost all face. This was especially so when they had the absolute advantage today. Yet they were in such a predicament. This was something they couldn't accept. Yi Kongfan's eyes flickered with coldness. Beside him, a figure stood up. Momentarily, the gazes of Qin Wentian and the others all turned to him. Everyone! A loud shout rang out. This person's voice was like thunder, shaking the entire battlefield. Momentarily, countless gazes turned over, staring at this young man. Lei Yan at the 5th level of Heavenly Dipper. His offense and defense are balanced, and he's extremely strong. If he challenges you, you must definitely not accept. Yi Lingshuang transmitted her voice to Qin Wentian, her words causing Qin Wentian's countenance to change slightly. Seems like this senior apprentice sister of his had the intention to pull the distance between them closer. Although he understood that Yi Lingshuang had a request, he didn't mind it. After all, no matter who it was, no one would be able to remain unmoved when their father was heavily injured. I'm Lei Yan from the Violet Thunder sect. Although I, Lei Yan, am from the Violet Thunder sect, upon seeing so many heroes appearing in the Yi country battle arena, I, Lei Yan, would like to add to the fun. I'm prepared to invite an expert from the battle sword sect to spar with me. Lei Yan spoke in a loud voice. Instantly, the entire battlefield erupted into an uproar as the sounds of mountains and seas filled the air, completely drowning the entire battlefield. The competition between the 9 great sects had always been intense, but it wasn't so easy to spectate the battles between them. In the Royal Sacred Region, only the sacred battle platform could be seen. If not, it would have to depend on luck. Now that Lei Yan had issued a challenge to an expert from the battle sword sect, it naturally caused the hearts of the crowd to be filled with excitement. It was rumored that the combat prowess of those from the battle sword sect was the strongest among the 9 great sections. Today, an expert from the Violet Thunder sect had issued a challenge to an expert from the battle sword sect. Those from the battle sword sect frowned as a cold light flickered in their eyes. An expert from the Violet Thunder sect directly issued a challenge in public, forcing them to accept it. If they didn't, wouldn't they be ridiculed by others? Their battle sword sect actually didn't even dare to accept the challenge? Brother Qin, I, Lei Yan, have already experienced your eloquence. But I wonder if your combat prowess is as good as your mouth. Lei Yan turned his head and stared at Qin Wentian. As expected, Qin Wentian wanted to challenge him because the person who caused the Violet Thunder sect to lose face today was none other than Qin Wentian. The young man beside the Holy Maiden? The crowd grew increasingly excited when they saw Qin Wentian. This young man seemed to have an extraordinary relationship with the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley, and was also a disciple of the Battle Sword sect. How could they not be filled with anticipation? My junior apprentice brother's cultivation base is at the 4th level of Heavenly Dipper, while you are at the 5th level. Aren't you ashamed of challenging me? Why don't you challenge me instead? Lu Yin had a smile that was not a smile on his face as he mocked Lei Yan. Hee, I Lei, also know that my words are somewhat inappropriate. It's just that Brother Qin's mouth is simply too venomous. I Lei have no choice but to seek guidance from him. As for you, there's no rush. There will naturally be someone from my Violet Thunder sect who will challenge you. Lei Yan's words caused the crowd to be even more excited. Seems like there wouldn't be just a single battle today. Qin Wentian inclined his head and stared at Lei Yan as he laughed in disdain. The loser shall die. How about it? As the sound of his voice faded, many in the crowd drew in a breath of cold air. How arrogant. The loser shall die? Lei Yan provoked him. And he actually used the simplest of words to reply. Such boldness caused the crowd to sigh in admiration. As expected of someone from the battle sword sect, the sect with the strongest individual combat prowess, Lei Yan's heart also trembled because of Qin Wentian's words. He stared at Qin Wentian's eyes only to see that they were deep and clear. That disdainful smile on his face was filled with self-confidence, as though as long as he dared to nod his head, Qin Wentian would be able to take his life. Boom! A towering might of lightning permeated the air. Lei Yan's silhouette flickered as he stepped forward, floating in the airspace above the 100 Victory battle platform. He pointed his finger at Qin Wentian. If you don't borrow any divine weapons or treasures, the loser shall die. The reason why he said that was because he was worried that Qin Wentian would play a trick on him. If Qin Wentian had a divine weapon, he would be able to instantly end his life. If he didn't borrow any divine weapons or treasures, he didn't believe that Qin Wentian would be able to defeat him. Lei Yan, if you really have the guts to accept my challenge, scram the hell out here. Lei Yan violently spoke, exuding an unexcelled aura. A lightning rock dragon could be seen coiling around his body, exuding a terrifying aura. Junior brother, his attacks are very strong, Lu Yan reminded when he saw Qin Wentian standing up. Qin Wentian nodded his head lightly. With a flash of light, a gigantic axe appeared in his hands as he faintly asked, "This is an ordinary weapon, should I be able to use it?" Those from the Violet Thunder sect sensed that this was indeed an ordinary weapon, hence they didn't say anything. His silhouette flickered as Qin Wentian stepped out, wielding a gigantic axe in his hands. Every step he took caused Lei Yan to feel a faint pressure bearing down on him. Gravity. Lei Yan's heart trembled. Instantly, his mandate of gravity bore down on Qin Wentian. However, Qin Wentian was already used to the extreme gravity back in the Gravity Mountain. His opponent's mandate of gravity had no way to affect him. At this moment, countless gazes were fixed on the two of them in the air. Those from the Medicine Sovereign Valley also placed great importance on this battle. They wanted to see how strong the person who had captured the heart of the Holy Maiden was exactly. Qin Wentian stepped out as a formless pressure gushed forth. Lei Yan's body was clad in a layer of stone armor that crackled with lightning. With such a defense, even if Lei Yan managed to land a strike, he wouldn't be able to break through it in a short period of time. The Battle Sword sect claims to have the strongest combat prowess. How laughable. Just a single battle and you're already so arrogant? Today, I shall let everyone see how laughable it is to claim to be the strongest in terms of individual combat prowess. Lei Yan dashed out as he roared in rage. Instantly, a lightning dragon materialized in the air, transforming into a resplendent dragonstone sword that pierced through the air, aiming for Qin Wentian. What a powerful attack! The eyes of the crowd flickered. Those from the Violet Thunder sect had cold smiles on their faces. This was Lei Yan's dragonstone sword technique. Its destructive power was extremely terrifying. Each and every one of his swords were indestructible and extremely hard to destroy. Qin Wentian lifted his hands as the will of his mandate gushed forth. From the center of his brows, a cold light shot out, penetrating into Lei Yan's sea of consciousness as he slashed out with his great axe. This axe strike seemed extremely ordinary, as though he was casually chopping down a tree. But at the instant the axe descended, everything in its path was destroyed. That indestructible dragonstone sword was directly cleaved into two halves. At the same time, Lei Yan's axe continued to slash forward as a beam of axe light flashed past. A crisp cracking sound rang out as Qin Wentian retracted his axe. The crowd turned their gazes onto Lei Yan only to see his body trembling as a line of blood appeared on his forehead. His body fell from the air. That axe strike was akin to chopping down a tree, directly taking Lei Yan's life. Chapter 531. Lei Yan's body slumped onto the ground, no longer breathing. Fresh blood dyed the entire arena red. A single axe strike. It was just an ordinary axe strike, yet it caused the hearts of those who saw it to tremble. This axe strike didn't merely chop down a tree, but instead, it severed the life of a young expert from the Violet Thunder sect. Qin Wentian's current strength was simply too overwhelming. After experiencing the tempering of the gravity mountain, his fleshly body was nearing perfection. Every single swing of his axe was able to utilize the strength of his entire body, and in addition to the superiority of his astral energy compared to others, as well as his attainments in the aspect of strength, although it seemed like a simple axe strike, only those who fought against him would know how much strength was contained within. The hearts of those from the Violet Thunder sect trembled as they stared at the corpse on the arena. Their countenances could no longer be described with just the word ashen. Not long ago, Lei Yan declared war in front of everyone, arrogantly declaring that he wanted to let everyone see that Qin Wentian was only a braggart. He wanted everyone to see that the Battle Sword sect's individual combat prowess was nothing but a joke. These words were still ringing in their ears, but when the axe cleaved down, how could it be described as a slap in the face? If this was a slap in the faces of those from the Violet Thunder sect were all slapped swollen. The experts from the Battle Sword sect all started, but they soon understood. Senior brother Lin Shuai and the elders personally went to welcome this young man. He would naturally be extraordinary. Not long ago, they already knew that this junior brother of theirs wasn't an ordinary character. But even so, that axe strike from Qin Wentian still gave them quite a shock. Although they believed that Qin Wentian would win, they didn't expect him to win in such an arrogant manner. With a single swing of his axe, he killed Lei Yan. Those from the Medicine Sovereign Valley couldn't help but be shocked as their eyes gleamed with sharpness. Seems like the young man the Holy Maiden liked was truly extraordinary. Sadly, his cultivation base was too low. Their Holy Maiden was someone who could concoct 5th-ranked medicinal pills, and was doted on by the Medicine Sovereign. As for the spectators of Yi, they only had a single thought in their hearts. The Battle Sword sect claimed to have the strongest individual combat prowess, and it wasn't just a lie. They were truly that monstrous. No wonder there were rumors saying that those who entered the Battle Sword sect would have a chance to join the Royal Sacred Sect. After tempering themselves in the Battle Sword sect for a few years, they would definitely be able to join the Royal Sacred Sect. But to Qin Wentian, killing Lei Yan was nothing more than an ordinary matter. Throughout these years, how many times had he been looked down upon? How many demon-level characters had died in his hands? Even he himself couldn't remember clearly. Just a mere Lei Yan, Qin Wentian didn't really place him in his heart. If it wasn't for Lei Yan specifically provoking him, he wouldn't have acted at all. But now that he was a disciple of the Battle Sword sect, he couldn't allow the reputation of the Battle Sword sect to be tarnished in his hands. Turning his gaze over, Qin Wentian stared in the direction of those from the Violet Thunder sect as he calmly spoke. Those from the Violet Thunder sect, your mouth is indeed much more powerful than your strength. As the sound of his voice faded, it was no different from pouring salt on the wounds of the Violet Thunder sect. Thinking about it, Lei Yan's heroic words before the battle, while Qin Wentian didn't say anything at all. He only said a single sentence, "The loser shall die." Now that they thought back to the words spoken by Qin Wentian, how arrogant and confident were they? My cultivation base is at the 4th level of Heavenly Dipper. Since those from the Violet Thunder sect love challenges so much, anyone below the 6th level of Heavenly Dipper is welcome to challenge me, including those at the 6th level of Heavenly Dipper. Qin Wentian faintly spoke. This time around, as the sound of his voice faded, another wave of commotion arose in the hearts of the spectators. Junior brother Qin has gone mad. Yi Lingshuang's countenance drastically changed. Although Qin Wentian's combat prowess was extremely powerful, and she had personally witnessed the might of that axe strike, the Violet Thunder sect was still one of the 9 great sects after all. Among Yi Kongfan's group, there were a few extremely talented geniuses whose cultivation bases were at the 6th level of Heavenly Dipper. They were already the cream of the crop in their respective cultivation levels, possessing terrifying combat prowess. Yet Qin Wentian actually dared to jump 2 levels to challenge them? From Yi Lingshuang's point of view, Qin Wentian's decision was simply too audacious. How impudent. The countenances of those from the Violet Thunder sect turned ashen. They were all infuriated by Qin Wentian's provocation. A cold light flickered in Yi Kongfan's eyes as he coldly spoke. I respect Brother Qin's combat prowess, but as fellow members of the 9 great sects, my junior brother Lei Yan was a guest of your battle sword sect. Even if your combat prowess was superior to his, you didn't show any mercy and directly killed him. Aren't you a little too vicious? If I, Yi Kongfan, don't give an explanation to my sect, I'm afraid I won't be able to escape punishment. How ridiculous. The members of your Violet Thunder sect are so rude and overbearing, exuding a towering killing intent. Lei Yan's arrogance is still fresh in my mind. Yi Kongfan, you are truly sinister. Lu Yun naturally wouldn't give face to Yi Kongfan. He directly exposed Yi Kongfan's words. Why don't I say the following words on your behalf? Although the disciples of my Violet Thunder sect are all at the 6th level of Heavenly Dipper, in order to avenge the death of my junior brother Lei Yan, my Violet Thunder sect is willing to accept this name. Yi Kongfan's countenance changed. This was indeed what he wanted to say, but he didn't expect Lu Yun from the Battle Sword sect to speak first. Earlier when Qin Wentian killed Lei Yan with a single axe strike, Yi Kongfan already knew that it was impossible for a 5th level Heavenly Dipper sovereign to defeat or kill Qin Wentian. They hadn't even clearly seen how strong Qin Wentian was. Only a 6th level Heavenly Dipper sovereign would be able to kill him. But an instant later, Yi Kongfan's countenance returned to normal as he smiled. That's right. Even if we lost some face, it doesn't matter. No matter what, we have to avenge this battle. If you guys want revenge, you can continue to challenge the experts of my Violet Thunder sect. After speaking, Yi Kongfan glanced at the person beside him as he spoke in a light voice. Junior brother Tan, I'm afraid we need you to fight for our sect. Yi Kongfan, aren't your actions a little too despicable? Yi Lingshuang's countenance changed. She stared at Yi Kongfan as she continued. Tan Feng from the Violet Thunder sect, his cultivation base is at the 6th level of Heavenly Dipper, and he also possesses the Flame Blood Mandate. Infusing his Mandate of Lightning, Mandate of Fire, Mandate of Blood and Mandate of Metal, his attacks are so powerful that even 7th level Heavenly Dipper sovereigns wouldn't be able to withstand it. Yet you want him to deal with a 4th level Heavenly Dipper sovereign like me? Don't you feel ashamed? Qin Wentian understood that although Yi Lingshuang's words were filled with anger, it was also a warning to Qin Wentian. She could sense Tan Feng's strength as well as the mandates he was proficient in. If Qin Wentian felt pressured, even if he rejected the battle, nobody would say anything. After all, the cultivation bases of the two of them weren't on the same level. If it wasn't for his arrogant words, I wouldn't have acted in such a manner. Yi Kongfan continued, the Battle Sword sect and the Violet Thunder sect are both part of the 9 great sections. My junior brother Lei Yan from the Violet Thunder sect died on the platform, and we have no complaints at all. But since you guys from the Battle Sword sect want to retract your words so easily, can I help Lei Yan to retract his words and punish him for killing my junior brother? Naturally, since he's a guest, if he's willing to kneel in front of my junior brother Lei Yan's corpse and apologize, I, Yi Kongfan, am willing to take responsibility for this matter. Yi Kongfan's voice was as calm as ever. His words were clearly sophistry, yet there was no way to refute it. After all, Qin Wentian was the one who spoke arrogantly first. Right now, Qin Wentian was stuck between a rock and a hard place. The hearts of the spectators mused. Hypocrite. Qin Wentian stared at Yi Kongfan. This person made use of his junior brother to act. Lei Yan had died, yet he didn't feel any sorrow. If not, how could he be so calm? Most probably, in Yi Kongfan's eyes, Lei Yan was nothing more than a chess piece. And now his chess piece was changed to Tan Feng, a chess piece used to kill Qin Wentian. How could Qin Wentian not understand Yi Kongfan's feelings for Mo Qingcheng? Before this, both of them didn't shed all pretense of cordiality, and Yi Kongfan was doing his best to conceal it. Now Yi Kongfan was already itching to kill Qin Wentian. He knew that it was impossible for Qin Wentian to kneel to Lei Yan. He had to experience this battle no matter what. And from Yi Lingshuang's words, It was obvious that Tan Feng's combat prowess was extremely high, and he even had the flame blood. If you want to fight, just scram the hell out. The blood in Qin Wentian's body surged. The Violet Thunder sect was one of the 9 great sects, and the geniuses of the Violet Thunder sect were naturally extremely powerful. Although he was confident in himself, he didn't dare to be blindly arrogant. Hence, he was already prepared to activate the power of his bloodline. If Tan Feng was truly strong enough, he would unleash the full power of his primordial demonic bloodline to kill him. He actually accepted the challenge. The hearts of the spectators were filled with shock. That was a 6th-level Heavenly Dipper sovereign from the Violet Thunder sect, and it was none other than Tan Feng. Those from the Battle Sword sect had all heard of Tan Feng's name before. Tan Feng stood up. His eyes were exceptionally cold, and when one stared at him, one could sense a dangerous aura emanating from him. With a flicker of his silhouette, Tan Feng moved like a specter towards Qin Wentian. His speed was exceedingly fast, and he didn't say a single word. A violent and dangerous surge of bloodline power gushed forth from his body, causing the air around him to emit a sizzling sound. His eyes were pitch black and crimson, as though there were black-colored flames burning within them, causing the eyes of others to feel a piercing pain. Both of their mandates are at the transformation boundary. Qin Wentian could sense the strength of Tan Feng's mandates from his eyes. Tan Feng's mandates were definitely not inferior to his own. Tan Feng continued advancing soundlessly. Lifting his palms, the surrounding space was filled with a terrifying sense of danger. His palms blasted out soundlessly, blasting towards Qin Wentian with a pitch-black palm imprint imprinted with the color of lava. Qin Wentian slashed out with his axe, slamming into the palm imprint. An instant later, a thunderous boom rang out as the destructive shockwaves danced wildly in the air. That palm imprint abruptly expanded in size, shrouded in a blood-red glow as lightning crackled around it. Qin Wentian lifted his axe once again as his blood surged. Immense strength gathered in his arms as he abruptly slashed out. The palm imprint was cleaved apart, yet the destructive might of the attack didn't diminish in the slightest as it continued on its path towards Qin Wentian. Bang! With stellar transposition, Qin Wentian's silhouette vanished from sight as he reappeared in the air. That palm imprint blasted out towards the horizons. Tan Feng was only taken aback by Qin Wentian's instantaneous movement. He instantly soared up into the air, and with a grab of his palm, a towering screen of light appeared in the air. The screen was clearly black in color, yet it was as though it contained a blood-red glow that enveloped the entire sky. The Great Destruction Palm Imprint. Senior Tan Feng is getting stronger and stronger. The experts from the Violet Thunder sect all had their eyes gleaming with sharpness. They were very clear of Tan Feng's strength. Even ordinary 7th-level Heavenly Dipper sovereigns would die in his hands, let alone a 4th-level Heavenly Dipper sovereign like Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian roared as an astral nova appeared in the air. It was none other than his astral soul, the Heavenly Hammer. Instantly, a terrifying light shone from it. With the Heavenly Hammer in his hands, he actually stepped towards the center of the Great Destruction Palm Imprint. Brandishing the Heavenly Hammer, he blasted out with all his strength. Bang! The towering waves of destructive energy gushed forth in a frenzy. As the astral nova smashed down, the Great Destruction Palm Imprint was actually still there. From this, one could see how tyrannical this technique was. Seeing that the destructive energy was about to engulf him, Qin Wentian executed stellar transposition once more, and at the instant the Great Destruction Palm Imprint was destroyed, Qin Wentian stood at an even higher altitude. As expected, I mustn't underestimate the geniuses of the various great sections. The innate techniques and techniques of the Violet Thunder sect must be extremely powerful as well. Just the destructive power of that palm imprint alone is extremely terrifying. Qin Wentian sighed in his heart. Tan Feng should be one of the more powerful characters in the Violet Thunder sect. Yi Kongfan's eyes flashed with a cold smile. He was very clear of Tan Feng's strength. If the two of them were suppressed to the same level, he wouldn't be much stronger than Tan Feng. Tan Feng's usage of the Will of Mandates was extremely terrifying, and he could infuse them into innate techniques to unleash an overwhelming might. Chapter 532. Tan Feng inclined his head, staring at Qin Wentian in the air. This type of instantaneous teleportation technique was truly powerful. In that instant, Qin Wentian's speed was so fast that even his perception couldn't catch up to him. Do you only know how to flee? Tan Feng coldly spoke. The blood in his body surged as a scorching heat circulated around him. The crimson-black glow radiating from him gave off a feeling of extreme danger. At this moment, Tan Feng was extremely depressed. He was proficient in offense, and given Qin Wentian's incredible evasion abilities, if he had a control-type astral soul, he would be able to restrict Qin Wentian more effectively before killing him. However, it was impossible for stellar martial cultivators to be perfect. Unless they reached the heavens and earth realm, they would be able to condense 6 or even 8 astral souls. Flee. Qin Wentian stared at Tan Feng. You aren't the only one who possesses the power of a bloodline. As the sound of Qin Wentian's voice faded, a towering bloodline glow radiated from him as a fearsome demonic qi permeated the air. The center of Qin Wentian's brows glowed with a terrifying light as his entire person became extremely demonic. That pair of demonic eyes of his caused people to feel a deep sense of reverence. This was the aura of a sovereign descending from the heavens. Let me see how strong a genius at the 6th level of Heavenly Dipper from the Violet Thunder sect is. A long spear appeared in Qin Wentian's hands as a terrifying light circulated around it. Tan Feng stared at Qin Wentian in the air, feeling an intense sense of threat. Stretching out both his palms, Tan Feng's entire body and palms turned golden in color. The golden light enveloped his body, causing his defense to become even more tyrannical while at the same time exuding a fearsome sharpness. His entire person was clad in a layer of golden armor. After which, his palms shone with crimson and black light once again, exuding a baleful aura. Busy. Qin Wentian's silhouette dashed downwards, exuding a terrifying might. His body glowed with a resplendent light, causing people to revere him. His long spear pierced through the air soundlessly, surpassing the speed of sound as it shot towards Tan Feng. This spear strike was so calm, yet it caused the hearts of those who saw it to tremble. Great Destruction Palm Imprint. Tan Feng lifted his left palm and blasted out. A gigantic palm imprint directly blocked the path of the long spear. Crisp sounds rang out as the long spear landed on the palm imprint of the Great Destruction Palm, causing cracks to appear on it. After which, the palm imprint crumbled apart, causing an extremely dangerous current to circulate in the air. Tan Feng's palm didn't stop. He knew that even the Great Destruction Palm imprint wouldn't be able to block his opponent's spear. A blood-red imprint appeared on his palm as a terrifying blood-red rune appeared. Poochie sounds rang out as the blood-red palm imprint actually managed to block the attack of the spear. Tan Feng could feel the blood-red imprint being continuously stripped away and destroyed, while his arm was filled with a terrifying force. However, he didn't care. His right palm slashed out, grabbing towards Qin Wentian. Streams of towering sword qi gushed forth. Qin Wentian abruptly flicked out with his left hand. Numerous terrifying swords danced in the air as they collided against Tan Feng's palm. The two of them instantly separated from each other. Qin Wentian felt a wave of destructive black-colored energy gushing into his arm, corroding it. That was the power of the Blood Flame Mandate infused into the Blood Flame Mandate. It was extremely corrosive and destructive. But how could Tan Feng not feel the same? His arm was trembling slightly, evidently feeling extremely uncomfortable. Tan Feng's strength was clearly much stronger compared to the 6th-level Heavenly Dipper sovereigns Qin Wentian had met before. This was especially so in terms of attack. Devour. Tan Feng's eyes were ice-cold. As the sound of his voice faded, a black-colored energy gushed forth from his body, enveloping Qin Wentian. Not good. The countenances of those from the Battle Sword sect drastically changed. They could all feel the destructive might contained within this energy. This kind of energy could directly corrode and destroy a person. However, to their surprise, Qin Wentian didn't retreat. In the center of his brows, a third eye opened as a terrifying will of mandates gushed into Tan Feng's sea of consciousness. Intrusive dream. Qin Wentian roared. Tan Feng instantly closed his eyes and bit his lips, forcing himself to stay awake. At the same time, he flicked his finger as a black-colored python manifested, lunging towards Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian's entire body was enveloped by that dangerous energy. There was no way for him to escape. Roar! A terrifying roar rang out as a terrifying demonic beast appeared behind Qin Wentian. This demonic beast was incomparably gigantic. It was none other than a demon emperor. It directly appeared behind Qin Wentian, grabbing Qin Wentian in its arms as they dashed forwards. The corrosive energy blasted onto the body of the demon emperor. However, this was Qin Wentian's astral nova. It had no life. At the same instant, Tan Feng released his astral novas. 4 astral novas erupted forth at the same time. A flame devil, a blood python, a lightning giant, and a golden sword. Die. Tan Feng's eyes were tightly shut as he lifted his hands once more, grabbing towards the demon sovereign. Resplendent currents of lightning and fire erupted forth, wanting to destroy this entire space, not allowing Qin Wentian to get close to him. Qin Wentian slammed out with his palms. The King Astral Sword pierced through everything as a supreme sword might gushed forth, slashing downwards. The humming sound of the sword resonated in the air, lacerating everything in its path. Qin Wentian stepped out, directly stepping on the King Astral Sword as sword chi gushed forth. Tan Feng's silhouette flickered as he frenziedly blasted out with his palms. Violent currents of chi flooded the entire space. Yet Qin Wentian continued stepping downwards. His killing intent was so cold that it felt as though it could tear everything apart. The golden sword collided with the black-colored King Astral Sword, only to see Qin Wentian stepping down once more. A crisp cracking sound rang out as cracks actually appeared on the golden sword. Tan Feng groaned in agony as his countenance turned pale. Qin Wentian's astral nova was actually stronger than his. One must know that his cultivation base was higher compared to Qin Wentian, and his astral nova should be more perfect. Qin Wentian stomped down once more, causing the cracks to widen. The boundless sword chi directly penetrated into Tan Feng's body as his bloodline power surged frenziedly, releasing his astral souls. Under the might of this sword intent, he would be destroyed sooner or later. Busy. The golden sword was retracted as the lightning giant and flame devil frenziedly attacked. The blood python fought against the demon sovereign, while Tan Feng disregarded everything else and rushed towards Qin Wentian. His palms blasted out in a frenzy as the fusion of the 2 astral novas contained an intent of destruction, capable of destroying everything. Die. The 7 annihilation swordplay completely erupted. Tan Feng groaned in agony as traces of blood could be seen at the corners of his lips. All the attacks he had blasted out were instantly destroyed. The destructive sword chi ravaged his body, causing a deep sense of terror to appear in his eyes. Scram! The sharp sword slammed towards Tan Feng's astral nova. Qin Wentian brandished his long spear, transforming into a beam of light as he pierced through the air once more. In that instant, Tan Feng's mind was completely submerged. After which, a light sound rang out as Qin Wentian's long spear pierced right through the center of his brows. The destructive energy in the air gradually dissipated as the astral novas returned to their original positions. The spectators stared at the airspace above the battle arena, only to see Qin Wentian standing arrogantly in the air. His long spear had pierced right through the center of Tan Feng's brows. Qin Wentian, who was only at the 4th level of Heavenly Dipper, actually managed to kill Tan Feng, a genius from the Violet Thunder sect who was at the 6th level of Heavenly Dipper. Such a battle achievement caused the hearts of the spectators to tremble. Qin Wentian pulled his long spear out as Tan Feng's body fell from the air. A Heaven's Chosen had fallen in the battle arena of the Yi country. Those from the Violet Thunder sect all stood up as their countenances turned ashen. Never in their wildest dreams would they have imagined that the final result would be like this. Qin Wentian was actually so powerful that he could kill Tan Feng. Such combat prowess is truly powerful. Those from the Battle Sword sect were both shocked and gratified. These 2 battles were undoubtedly a declaration of the strength of their Battle Sword sect, trampling on the faces of those from the Violet Thunder sect to prove themselves. What other reasons do you have? Qin Wentian pointed his long spear at Yi Kongfan, consecutively killing 2 people, including Tan Feng who was at the 6th level of Heavenly Dipper. How could Yi Kongfan still be so righteous? Yi Kongfan's countenance turned ashen. Most probably, he would have to report to his master about Tan Feng's death. What made him even more infuriated was that in front of so many people, Tan Feng died in the hands of a disciple from the Battle Sword sect. Not only that, they were the ones who provoked him first. Not only that, this disciple of the Battle Sword sect was also someone Mo Qingqing liked. His eyes flashed with an intense killing intent. If it was possible, he wanted to personally kill Qin Wentian. However, he understood that those from the Battle Sword sect would never allow such a thing to happen. Hence, he could only hide his killing intent in his heart. Qin Wentian could naturally sense the killing intent in the hearts of those from the Violet Thunder sect. He coldly laughed as he continued, "Stop challenging those from my Battle Sword sect. You guys are truly not worthy." After speaking, Qin Wentian kept his long spear as his silhouette flickered, flying towards the spectator stands. When he arrived, a few from the Violet Thunder sect stepped out, exuding an intense killing intent. However, those from the Battle Sword sect all had cold glints in their eyes. Standing up, Duan Han icily spoke. "You guys can't win a challenge and want to shed all pretense of cordiality? The Violet Thunder sect has truly broadened my horizons." "How can that be? It's just that the deaths of our fellow apprentice brothers caused us to feel anger in our hearts," Yi Kongfan emotionlessly replied. He waved his hands as the spectators all retreated. Qin Wentian continued walking, as though there was no one else here. He walked to the side of Mo Qingqing as he spoke in a low voice. "Qingqing, although the battle in the arena is extremely fascinating, there are some people here who spoil the mood. Let's leave." "Right." Mo Qingqing naturally listened to Qin Wentian. She stood up and walked side by side with Qin Wentian, causing the hearts of countless in the arena to tremble. The Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley seemed to have an extraordinary relationship with this disciple from the Battle Sword sect. The disciples from the Battle Sword sect all laughed coldly as they glanced at those from the Violet Thunder sect. The experts from the Medicine Sovereign Valley naturally followed behind Mo Qingqing. Very swiftly, only Yi Kongfan and his group remained here. Today they wanted to show off their strength, yet the ending was the exact opposite. They lost all their face in front of so many people, and they were incomparably embarrassed. "Kongfan, if I don't avenge this debt, I'm not a human." A young man from the Violet Thunder sect coldly spoke as his killing intent gushed forth. Yi Kongfan clenched his fists tightly as a cold light flickered in his eyes. A towering killing intent surged in his heart. The person who lost the most face today was none other than him, the master. Chapter 533. Within the Human Emperor Hall of the Royal Palace, the Human Emperor was lying on his dragon bed in a luxurious chamber. The Human Emperor of Yi, although he was quietly lying there, exuded a sense of majesty. His black hair had a few strands of silver mixed within, making him extremely conspicuous. His eyes were opened, revealing traces of fatigue. However, that majestic countenance of his had a faint smile on it as he stared at the beautiful maiden beside him. He knew that this woman was none other than the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley. If it wasn't for the fact that Yi had some friendship with the Medicine Sovereign Valley in the past, the Medicine Sovereign Valley wouldn't have sent their Holy Maiden here personally. Very few people in the outside world knew of the strength of the Medicine Sovereign Valley. They wouldn't interfere with external affairs, but because they were proficient in pill concoction, no one dared to offend them. However, what made the Human Emperor taken aback was that the person standing beside the Holy Maiden was actually a young man. This young man was extraordinarily handsome and stood out from the crowd. As the Human Emperor of Yi, he had seen countless people in his life, and he could faintly sense that this young man in front of him was no ordinary person. Standing in the majestic chamber of the Human Emperor, Qin Wentian's heart was as calm as still water, even looking at him as though he was an ordinary injured person. Even though he was heavily injured, he was still as imposing as ever. A single glance from him could cause the hearts of juniors to tremble in fear. "Royal Father, this is Qin Wentian, a junior brother of mine who just joined the sect." On the first day he stepped into the Battle Sword sect, he comprehended 14 sword strikes in front of the grass hut. breaking the record of the 7th and 14th sword strikes consecutively. Many elders wanted to take him as a disciple, and even the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness personally invited him, only to be rejected by junior brother Qin. Yi Lingshuang sat on the bed as she smiled at her father. The human emperor nodded. He naturally knew about the legend of the battle sword Sek's grass hut. That old witch, the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness, is extremely arrogant. Little brother Qin actually rejected her invitation to take him as a disciple in front of so many people. The younger generations will surpass us in time. Emperor Yi laughed, his words causing those from the battle sword sect to be astonished. Only the human emperor of ancient countries, or the clan leaders of the major clans would dare to refer to the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness as an old witch. Junior brother Qin and the Holy Maiden are truly a match made in heaven. Yi Lingshuang held onto the human emperor's hand as she smiled. Although her heart was filled with sorrow, Yi Lingshuang still had a radiant smile in front of the human emperor. The human emperor didn't find it strange. In fact, when the Holy Maiden came in for the second time to diagnose him, and saw how intimate the two of them were, Yi Lingshuang's first sentence allowed him to guess the relationship between the two of them. Most probably, the Holy Maiden took into consideration that Qin Wentian was the junior apprentice brother of his daughter, Yi Lingshuang, which was why she was willing to diagnose him again. It is indeed a match made in heaven. The human emperor laughed. He wasn't trying to flatter Qin Wentian. What sort of character was he? The human emperor of Yi country. He could dominate the world unhindered. Even if he had to face a life and death situation, he wouldn't go so far as to flatter others. It was just that when he stared at this couple before him, he couldn't help but think back to when he was young. Baiyu, do you still remember the 7-colored phoenix feather robe? The human emperor glanced at a beautiful lady beside him. This was none other than his wife, the empress of Yi country. I still remember. Back then when the two of us roamed the supreme demon mountain range, we slayed a Yafeng and obtained its wings to forge a divine weapon. The Empress of Yi smiled. Give it to the Holy Maiden as a congratulatory gift for their wedding in the future. How about it? The human emperor spoke to the Empress. Senior human emperor. Qin Wentian felt some shock in his heart. Just when he wanted to reject, the human emperor continued. Although I'm in dire straits, I still have many treasures. This divine weapon isn't for you but for your future wife. How can you reject it? Qin Wentian's eyes flickered before he nodded his head. In that case, many thanks to senior human emperor. He wasn't a pretentious person. Since the human emperor said so, he could only accept it. Mo Qingqing's beautiful eyes flickered. Seeing that Qin Wentian had agreed, she didn't say anything else. An instant later, the Empress walked over with a brocade box in her hands. Within it, there was a dazzling 7-colored divine robe. The robe shimmered with astral light, yet it was so thin that it seemed to be translucent. This divine weapon was forged by the human emperor in the past, and was given to the Empress as a token of love. After that, the human emperor and the Empress got married. The meaning behind this gift is extraordinary. One of the human emperor's concubines smiled. Evidently, the human emperor hoped that this pair of youths would become a pair in the future. Mo Qingqing glanced at Qin Wentian beside her, as a hint of sweetness could be seen in her eyes. She received the treasure and spoke with gratitude. Many thanks to the human emperor and empress. Haha, you came all the way here to treat a dying man like me. Little brother is also the junior apprentice brother of Lingshuang. With such fate, what does a mere gift count for? The human emperor casually laughed. However, his voice was filled with a faint sense of weakness, as though he was out of breath. The poison he was afflicted with is a blood poison. At this moment, a voice drifted over. Qin Wentian's countenance stiffened as he turned his head, staring at Mu Feng as he asked, Mu Feng, do you know of this poison? The concealment ability of the blood poison is the strongest, but once it's activated, its toxicity is also the most terrifying. It hides within the blood vessels, and once it's activated, the blood vessels will circulate throughout the entire body, causing every part of the body to be tainted with this poison. There's no cure, and it's extremely difficult to use medicinal pills or medicinal herbs to cure it. Unless it's a supreme-grade medicinal pill, it would be able to transform one's blood vessels, and at the same time, imbue it with healing properties. Every drop of blood is a medicinal pill, and after it's activated, it would circulate throughout the entire body, cleansing the body of the poison. Mu Feng explained. Mo Qingqing's heart trembled. She knew that the human emperor's poison had already spread throughout his entire body. However, she wasn't proficient in poison, and didn't know that this was caused by the blood poison. The people in the ancient hall all stared at Mu Feng. They didn't expect this person to be proficient in poison. He's my friend Mu Feng. His master is known as the Poison King, and I'm sure he's extremely proficient in poison. Qin Wentian introduced. Qingqing, do you have such a medicinal pill? There's indeed a medicinal pill that can cleanse the poison in one's blood. However, since this poison was able to harm the human emperor, it should be extremely tyrannical. Only a 5th-ranked medicinal pill would be able to cleanse it. However, this medicinal pill is too rare. I've never heard of it before. I wonder if Master knows of it. Mo Qingqing whispered. Mo Qingqing spoke in a low voice. The human emperor laughed. What a ruthless method. Since they poisoned me, how could they allow me to recover so easily? At this moment, Mu Feng's gaze shifted onto Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian furrowed his brows as a bright light flashed in his mind. He suddenly understood the meaning behind Mu Feng's gaze. Back then, he was poisoned by Mu Feng, but he managed to heal himself. It seemed like Mu Feng still remembered this scene. Since Qin Wentian was able to heal himself, it meant that there must be something extraordinary about his body. Qin Wentian closed his eyes, quietly comprehending the second type of bloodline power within his body. Back then, it was precisely this bloodline power that helped him expel all the poison in his body, making him impervious to all poisons. Holy Maiden, is there really no way to find such a medicinal pill? Yi Lingshuang stared at Mo Qingqing, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. However, Mo Qingqing shook her head. I really have no idea. It's unheard of for one's bloodline to possess a healing ability. Even some of the elders in the Medicine Sovereign Valley might not be able to do so. Also, the human emperor has already experienced a great battle, and the poison has already spread to all parts of his body. Other than this method, there's no other way to cure him. No wonder they spared no expense to force me to fight. Seems like this is heaven's will. Now the only thing I'm worried about is you guys. After I die, they will definitely not spare you. The human emperor stared at his wife and children. Royal father. Yi Lingshuang's eyes were slightly moist. She couldn't suppress the sadness in her heart. The human emperor of a generation was at the end of his life. Who could read the eyes of the human emperor? He only wished for the safety of his family. There's still hope. Qin Wentian opened his eyes, causing the gazes of everyone to turn to him. Senior human emperor, you can rest in peace. As for the matter of recovery, we will discuss it when we return. Qin Wentian didn't say anything more. The implications of the human emperor's injuries were too great. If others knew that there was a possibility to cure him, there would definitely be people who would take the risk. That would be disadvantageous to them. Hence, even if they could cure the human emperor, they had to be incomparably cautious. A bright light flashed in the eyes of the human emperor. He stared deeply at Qin Wentian as he spoke. Fine, as long as I'm not dead, they wouldn't dare to act recklessly. Even if I die, I will make them wait patiently. I really want to see who would dare to overturn the heavens in the Yi country if this emperor doesn't close my eyes. An expression of admiration appeared on Qin Wentian's face. Even at the brink of death, the human emperor was still so tyrannical. As long as he wasn't dead, there wouldn't be anyone who would dare to launch a coup d'état. Such a ruthless hegemon, even when he was on the verge of death, still possessed such terrifying might. One could very well imagine how awe-inspiring he was back then. Qin Wentian and the rest bid their farewells, and returned to the Medicine Sovereign Palace prepared for those from the Medicine Sovereign Valley. The people from the Medicine Sovereign Valley frowned when they saw Qin Wentian and Mo Qingqing walking side by side towards the direction of Mo Qingqing's sleeping quarters. As the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley, Mo Qingqing's status was extraordinary. Each and every one of her actions represented the medicine sovereign valley. Holy Maiden. Upon thinking of this, someone called out to Mo Qingqing and Qin Wentian. Mo Qingqing turned her head and asked, "What's the matter?" The sleeping quarters of the Holy Maiden are not to be entered by outsiders. One of the maidens stared at Qin Wentian as she coldly spoke. Impudent. Mo Qingqing coldly snorted when she saw that the maidens were targeting Qin Wentian. Her words caused the countenance of the maidens to change as she bowed. Holy Maiden, this concerns your reputation. In any case, this place is the royal palace of the Yi country. There's no way you can hide this from the eyes and ears of others. Qingqing. Qin Wentian's heart trembled. The words of the maidens weren't without reason. If Mo Qingqing's reputation was damaged, he naturally wouldn't be willing to do so. However, Mo Qingqing held onto his hand as she turned her head to look at him with a radiant smile on her face. Maybe, only when facing him, would Mo Qingqing reveal such a smile. Let me tell all of you right now, I'm his wife. Mo Qingqing spoke to the maidens. After which, she pulled Qin Wentian along as she continued. Without my command, no one is to disturb us. The countenances of those from the medicine sovereign valley froze. All of them were speechless. The feelings the Holy Maiden had for Qin Wentian had already surpassed everything. It was more important than her status as the Holy Maiden, more important than her reputation, and even more important than the medicine sovereign valley. This was something they couldn't accept. No one is to divulge any information regarding this matter. One of the maidens coldly stated, "Seal this entire space." Chapter 534. Qin Wentian followed Mo Qingqing into her bedroom, feeling a faint warmth in his heart. They had reunited after such a long time, and their fates were unknown. After Mo Qingqing lost her memories, she was able to remember him with just a single glance. How could Qin Wentian not feel such deep emotions? The two of them sat in front of the warm jade bed. Mo Qingqing leaned against Qin Wentian's chest. The two of them didn't say anything. They were only enjoying this rare moment of warmth. Ever since Mo Qingqing was brought away by Luohi from Chu, they had never been able to be together in such a peaceful and carefree manner. Qin Wentian hugged the alluring figure of Mo Qingqing. Mo Qingqing inclined her head slightly as she smiled sweetly at him. Dumbo. It has been so many years. Why are you still a Dumbo? Qin Wentian pinched Mo Qingqing's nose as he thought back to the time when they were young. Warmth flowed through his heart. How simple and honest they were back then. Dumbo, Dumbo. Mo Qingqing giggled. Staring at that flawless countenance, Qin Wentian couldn't help but be a little dazed. Upon seeing the look in Qin Wentian's eyes, Mo Qingqing's cheeks flushed red, causing her beauty to intensify, causing the hearts of those who looked at her to palpitate. She was too beautiful, enough to cause everyone in the world to suffocate. What are you looking at? Mo Qingqing couldn't stand the look in Qin Wentian's eyes. She shyly dived into his embrace. Qin Wentian laughed carefreely, hugging Mo Qingqing just like that, enjoying the fragrance of the woman he loved deeply. His eyes grew misty. After so many years, he had never felt so relaxed before. Maybe only when he was together with Qingqing would he be able to let go of everything in his heart. She was the harbor of his soul. Qingqing. There's a surge of energy in my body that can expel poison. It's like a bloodline energy. Can I guide it into the human emperor's body and fuse it with his bloodline, allowing the human emperor's bloodline to have a healing ability? Qin Wentian couldn't help but ask when he thought of the human emperor. Mo Qingqing came out from Qin Wentian's embrace. Her beautiful eyes flashed with a strange light as she asked, "Wentian, are you sure that this bloodline is able to expel all poisons? If you want to infuse your power into the human emperor's body, you need to fuse your blood, which may lead to the poison invading your blood. I won't allow you to suffer any harm. There should be no problem." Qin Wentian told Mo Qingqing about how he was poisoned back then, causing a look of contemplation to appear on Mo Qingqing's face. An instant later she replied, "If there really is such a bloodline ability, as long as we supplement it with a few types of medicinal pills, we should be able to achieve the desired effect." If it really has the effect of expelling the poison, as long as the human emperor recuperates for a period of time and uses medicinal pills to recuperate, he should be able to recover. After all, the most serious injury the human emperor suffers from is poison. If it's possible, I hope to be able to cure the human emperor. A look of contemplation appeared on Qin Wentian's face. The personality of the human emperor was truly worthy of respect. Not only that, the human emperor was Yi Lingshuang's father. In addition to Yi Kongfan's hatred for him, no matter how one looked at it, Qin Wentian should cure the human emperor and rebuild the Yi country. Such a powerful ancient country couldn't be compared to mortal countries. Usually, the strongest among them would be able to decide everything. The human emperor alone could dominate an entire country. Right now, even though the human emperor was on the brink of death and the Qi king and the others had the advantage, they still didn't dare to kill everyone. This was because they were afraid of the human emperor's might. They were worried that the human emperor would give up his life in a fit of rage. Hence, to them, they would rather slowly exhaust the human emperor to death. After all, the injuries of the human emperor would only worsen. In that case, I need to see the strength of your bloodline first. If not, I won't be at ease. Mo Qingqing's limpid eyes stared at Qin Wentian, causing Qin Wentian to laugh. What do you want me to do? Mo Qingqing didn't reply. She only stared at him with deep emotions, as though wanting to melt his heart. Staring at that countenance of hers, Qin Wentian's heart pounded violently. To be alone with such an empire-toppling beauty, it truly caused his heart to be stirred. Dumbo. Mo Qingqing bit her lips as a blush appeared on her cheeks. Qin Wentian sighed. Qingqing, in this life, with you as my wife, what more can I ask for? After speaking, Qin Wentian also let go of the fetters in his heart. She loved him deeply, and he loved her deeply as well. She had already told others, disregarding everything else, that she was his wife. He also firmly believed that he would be able to take care of this young lady in front of him forever. Mo Qingqing, she would forever be the pure and innocent young lady in Qin Wentian's heart. 10 years, with a single glance, their love was determined for this life. On the road to the ends of the earth, life and death together. There was no such thing as love in the world. A distance of 100,000 miles makes it hard for them to meet again. Life and death are hard to separate. A beauty is still faintly discernible. In the depths of love, how could one restrain oneself? 3 days later, in a palace, Yi Kongfan's countenance was extremely gloomy. He no longer had that carefree demeanor. In front of him, 2 people came to report some news. During these 3 days, the people from the Medicine Sovereign Valley had locked down the sleeping chambers they were staying in. But after all, they were in the depths of the royal palace. How could they hide anything from him? For a total of 3 days, Qin Wentian and Mo Qingqing were both alone in the sleeping chambers. Every time he thought of this, Yi Kongfan's heart would turn cold as his killing intent gushed forth. Back then, when the people from the human emperor's bloodline went to invite the people from the Medicine Sovereign Valley over, Yi Kongfan also felt an intense enmity towards them. But the instant he saw Mo Qingqing, all the enmity vanished. He wanted to subdue this pure and holy woman. He wanted to obtain Mo Qingqing and make her his woman. Yi Kongfan had always been extraordinary. He was the son of the Qi king of Yi country, possessing the heavenly lightning physique, calamity lightning bloodline, and was a chosen of the Violet Thunder sect. He believed that he was the chosen of the heavens, and that the ancient Yi country would be under his control in the future. Mo Qingqing, as the holy maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley, had a countenance so beautiful that it could topple empires. The moment she appeared, Yi Kongfan felt that this was a woman bestowed to him by the heavens. Yi Kongfan was truly extraordinary. He had already dispelled all hostility he had towards the Medicine Sovereign Valley. Even though they were here to help his enemies, he still treated them with respect and treated them with utmost respect. This was all for the sake of their beauty. However, Mo Qingqing didn't mince words when she spoke to him. She was as cold and aloof as a winter plum blossom, pure and holy. Yet this only made Yi Kongfan's desire to subdue her even stronger. This was the type of woman he wanted to obtain, cold and pure. If he could subdue her, he would definitely become the envy of countless people. Hence he wasn't anxious at all. However, the appearance of Qin Wentian shattered Yi Kongfan's fantasies. That holy and aloof maiden only glanced at Qin Wentian once before she threw herself into his embrace, tears streaming down her face like rain. She was completely immersed in love. How could there be any trace of her holy and aloof demeanor left? But even so, Yi Kongfan still held on to a glimmer of hope. He, Yi Kongfan, was a chosen of the heavens. How could he lose to a disciple of the battle sword sect? But now, this glimmer of hope was completely shattered. Every time he thought of the two of them staying in their chambers for the past 3 days, Yi Kongfan's heart would burn with jealousy. Slut, I still thought you were so pure and holy. Yi Kongfan slammed his palms onto the chair beside him, directly shattering it. When he thought of that beautiful face that could topple empires, enjoying the pleasures of Qin Wentian, his countenance turned malevolent. Slut, I will make you regret this. Yi Kongfan icily spoke. I want her to lose all of her reputation. I don't need to teach you what to do, right? Yes, Crown Prince. The people in front of him bowed slightly. Staring at the sinister look in Yi Kongfan's eyes, they felt a wave of fear. That gaze was too terrifying, like a blazing inferno. It seemed like this heaven's chosen had suffered a heavy blow this time around. What are you all still waiting for? Yi Kongfan swept his gaze over to them. Momentarily, the few of them bowed and retreated, leaving the great hall. In the residence of those from the Medicine Sovereign Valley, the mood of those from the Medicine Sovereign Valley was extremely bad these few days. Today, Lin Yu requested permission to enter Mo Qingqing's chambers. However, when she entered, she only saw Mo Qingqing and Qin Wentian in the midst of concocting medicinal pills. Her countenance involuntarily froze. The current Mo Qingqing was even more charming, exuding a sense of nobility and elegance, causing others to not dare to stare at her directly. However, when she was facing Qin Wentian, that alluring expression on her face caused even Lin Yu, who was a female, to be stunned by her beauty. The holy maiden originally had a countenance that could topple empires. Her demeanor was elegant, and she also had an exquisite heart. There seemed to be a halo around her. And now, other than that pure and holy aura, she exuded an additional sense of femininity, causing people to feel as though they were bewitched just by looking at her. Most probably, no man in the world would be able to resist the charm of the holy maiden. Lin Yu silently mused. What's the matter? Mo Qingqing turned her head and stared at Lin Yu, regaining her elegance and nobility, causing others to not dare to profane her. Nothing much, it's just that master ordered me to come here to see if anything happened to the holy maiden. Why didn't you leave the chambers for the past 3 days? Lin Yu respectfully asked. Do I need to tell you what I'm doing? If your master is unhappy, just tell her to return to the Medicine Sovereign Valley. Mo Qingqing's voice contained traces of coldness, causing Lin Yu's heart to tremble. After which she bowed and replied. Master is also worried about the holy maiden. Lin Yu will take her leave now. After speaking, she retreated from the chambers. Qin Wentian stared at Mo Qingqing, feeling that it was extremely funny. This caused Mo Qingqing to glare at him. What are you laughing at? My Qingqing actually has such a majestic side to her. Qin Wentian joked, yet he was sighing in his heart. Mo Qingqing told him that she had no idea who sent her to the Medicine Sovereign Valley. After that, the Medicine Sovereign personally treated her injuries, guided her, and even bestowed her the title of Holy Maiden. Mo Qingqing's status was so high, there would naturally be pressure as well. Not only that, the Medicine Sovereign Valley was also a transcendent power. How could there not be competition? As the Holy Maiden, how could Mo Qingqing not have her own prestige? You don't like it? Mo Qingqing's beautiful eyes stared at Qin Wentian, as though she was worried that he wouldn't like it. How can that be? No matter what you do, I like it. Qin Wentian laughed. Just by hearing the sweet words exchanged between the two of them, he could tell that their relationship had grown closer. Mo Qingqing retracted her hands and quietly rested them on Qin Wentian's shoulders. If the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley was seen by others, it was unknown how many people would be envious of her. The medicinal pills we prepared are almost done. However, if we want to treat the human emperor's injuries, we have to do it secretly. If not, if we arouse their suspicions, they might take the risk. Mo Qingqing spoke. Qin Wentian nodded. He had naturally thought of this point as well. Only the two of us know about this matter. Don't tell anyone else from the Medicine Sovereign Valley. We will just say that we went to visit the human emperor to check on his injuries like usual. Qin Wentian spoke in a low voice. He already had an idea in his heart. If they were to publicly announce that they were treating the human emperor, given the Qi King's current control over the royal palace, it would be impossible to hide this from the Qi King's eyes. Chapter 535. Today Qin Wentian and Mo Qingqing finally walked out of their chambers. Both of them were in high spirits, and as the sunlight cascaded down on them, Mo Qingqing closed her eyes and drew in a deep breath. She then opened her arms, as though wanting to embrace the sunlight. It's so good to have you around. Mo Qingqing's countenance flickered with the glow of happiness. These few days she was always together with Qin Wentian, occasionally concocting pills. The feeling she had was so surreal. If she could live like this for the rest of her life, she would have nothing more to ask for. Qin Wentian turned his head, seeing the sunlight cascading down on Mo Qingqing's flawless countenance. The smile on his face grew even more radiant. Such a wife was something countless men yearned for even in their dreams. Qingqing, you are the holy maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley. One day, I will hold the grandest wedding for you in the royal sacred region, letting everyone in the world know that you are my wife. Qin Wentian silently vowed in his heart. Mo Qingqing disregarded her reputation to be together with him, completely giving herself to him. He, Qin Wentian, was a man of character. How could he let Qingqing down? How could he not give Mo Qingqing a proper status? Although he knew that Mo Qingqing didn't care about her reputation, he did. He wanted Mo Qingqing to marry him in a grand fashion, letting everyone in the world know that the holy maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley had found a good husband. Let's go. Qin Wentian held onto Mo Qingqing's hand. Mo Qingqing stared at him as a sweet smile appeared on her face, nodding her head as she walked out. The people from the Medicine Sovereign Valley stood guard in every corner of the grand hall. Upon seeing the two of them walking out, they couldn't help but sigh in their hearts. The holy maiden and Qin Wentian had been cooped up together for 4 days straight. From this, one could tell how much the holy maiden loved the young man in front of her. She didn't care about what the outside world thought of her, nor did she care about her reputation. Those from the Medicine Sovereign Valley understood that even the Medicine Sovereign wouldn't be able to stop them from being together. But of course, given how much the Medicine Sovereign doted on the holy maiden, how could he stop them? Back then, there was someone who disrespected Mo Qingqing, the holy maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley, saying that she wanted to replace Mo Qingqing. Not only that, the status of that maiden in the Medicine Sovereign Valley was exceedingly high, and her talent was also outstanding. However, the Medicine Sovereign personally interfered in this matter, saying that the maiden had offended her superiors. Hence, the Medicine Sovereign crippled her cultivation base and expelled her from the Medicine Sovereign Valley. After this incident, no one in the Medicine Sovereign Valley dared to provoke Mo Qingqing again. Even if they were unhappy, they wouldn't openly clash with Mo Qingqing. Saintess. Those from the Medicine Sovereign Valley all bowed when they saw Mo Qingqing. Mo Qingqing faintly stated, I'm going to check on the injuries of the human emperor. You guys come with me. Right. The maidens nodded as they followed Mo Qingqing to pay a visit to the human emperor. Outside the chambers of the human emperor, there were still many experts present. There were even armored soldiers standing guard. The atmosphere was extremely tight. The Empress, Crown Prince and Yi Lingshuang personally came out to welcome Mo Qingqing when they heard that she wanted to pay a visit. Within the chambers of the human emperor, there were only those close to the human emperor. I've concocted a few medicinal pills, hoping that they would be able to alleviate the injuries of the human emperor. At the same time, I also need to feed the medicinal pills to the human emperor. I'll need some time. So please wait outside and don't disturb me. Mo Qingqing calmly stated. Other than her and Qin Wentian, no one else knew what she wanted to do. Right. The Empress smiled and nodded her head. In that case, I'll have to trouble the holy maiden. Mo Qingqing was still as calm as ever. She casually nodded her head, not revealing the slightest hint of abnormality. In fact, she didn't even instruct the guards to seal off the chambers of the human emperor. Senior human emperor, after this, we might be a little disrespectful and do things that are out of line with etiquette. We hope that senior human emperor can forgive us and keep this a secret. Qin Wentian transmitted his voice to the human emperor. Only the human emperor could hear it. The eyes of the human emperor flickered as an intense glint of sharpness flashed past, after which he blinked his eyes, indicating that he had heard it. As the human emperor, how many storms had he not experienced before? He naturally wouldn't make a big fuss about it. However, seeing how solemn Qin Wentian was, maybe, senior human emperor, please consume this medicinal pill. Mo Qingqing placed a medicinal pill into the human emperor's mouth. The human emperor opened his mouth and swallowed it. At this moment, the empress and the others departed. She turned her head back and glanced at the human emperor. There was nothing to worry about. The holy maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley wouldn't collude with the Qi King to harm the human emperor. Outside the chambers of the human emperor's chambers, everyone was quietly waiting. The empress glanced at Yi Lingshuang as she smiled. Lingshuang, this junior brother of yours is an extraordinary character. He is indeed extraordinary. Yi Lingshuang nodded. She carefully thought about everything regarding Qin Wentian. Indeed, the more she thought about it, the more she felt that Qin Wentian was extraordinary. Just the fact that an elder of the Battle Sword sect, as well as her senior brother Lin Shuai, had personally entered the sect from Xianqing City, and comprehended 14 sword strikes at the same time was sufficient to cause people to feel that something was amiss. Not only that, being able to cause a girl like the Holy Maiden to fall head over heels for him. This fellow is truly amazing when it comes to picking up girls. The Empress laughed. Yi Lingshuang's lips moved closer to the Empress's ears as she whispered, causing the Empress's eyes to brighten. This fellow is truly capable. To think that he still has a mistress in the Battle Sword sect. Not only that, she's also a peerless beauty, much better compared to your royal father. Mother and daughter chatted idly. Time flowed by unknowingly, yet there was still no movement from within. Why did the Holy Maiden take so long to enter? A prince asked. The Holy Maiden naturally has her own plans. We just need to wait quietly. The Empress unhappily glanced at the princes. If they were so impatient, how would they be able to accomplish great things? No wonder she, the descendant of the human emperor, was bullied by the various kings. The descendants of the human emperor were truly lacking in talent. They were even inferior to Yi Lingshuang. Time slowly flowed by. Even the empress herself was getting impatient. But when she thought of the Holy Maiden's words, she calmed herself down. Those from the Medicine Sovereign Valley also sensed that something was amiss. If it was just a simple medicinal pill, why would it take so long? Okay, you can enter now. At this moment, Mo Qingqing's voice drifted over. Everyone shook their heads with bitter smiles on their faces, silently musing that they were thinking too much. The Holy Maiden was treating the human emperor's injuries. What other matters could there be? Even they were thinking this way. How could the guards outside be suspicious? The human emperor was still quietly lying there, just like before. Qin Wentian and Mo Qingqing exchanged glances as they smiled. After which he spoke. Empress, we will take our leave first. Does the Holy Maiden want to have a meal together? The Empress asked. There's no need. Mo Qingqing shook her head, following behind Qin Wentian as they departed. Junior brother Qin, my fellow disciples from the Battle Sword sect have gone to the Yi country for a stroll. If you have time, you can bring the Holy Maiden there to relax. Yi Lingshuang smiled at Qin Wentian. Okay. Qin Wentian smiled and nodded his head. The two of them slowly departed. Nobody knew what happened in the human emperor's chambers earlier. Although the human emperor had a peaceful smile on his face, his heart was filled with shock. Even now he still had no way to calm down. These two fellows really have guts and boldness. As he thought of this, a smile appeared on the face of the human emperor. How good would it be if he had a pair of children like them? Sadly, although his daughter wasn't too bad, His sons weren't able to live up to expectations. Without him, there was no way he could dominate this vast ancient country. For the next few days, Qin Wentian and Mo Qingqing went in and out together, like shadows following the body. Every day, they would go to the human emperor's chambers to take a look, staying for an hour before leaving again. The relationship between them grew closer and closer. This was especially so for the relationship between the human emperor, Qin Wentian, and Mo Qingqing. Their relationship caused the other princes to feel jealousy. Today, in the human emperor's chambers, the human emperor was still lying on his bed, staring at Qin Wentian and Mo Qingqing as he smiled. "Wentian, I have a request. I wish to accept you as my foster son. Are you willing?" Qin Wentian's countenance stiffened. Evidently, he was taken aback. He didn't expect the human emperor to have such a thought. However, given the human emperor's status, it was true that he was favoring Qin Wentian. Although Qin Wentian understood how much the human emperor valued him, the fact that he wanted to accept him as his foster son was purely because their personalities were compatible. "If you are unwilling, feel free to reject me directly. I won't put it in my heart." The human emperor laughed. Mo Qingqing was the holy maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley. Their statuses were different, and it wasn't easy for the human emperor to accept her as his foster daughter. But if Qin Wentian agreed to be his foster son, Mo Qingqing would be like a daughter to him. How would Wentian dare to reject the human emperor's kindness? Qin Wentian recalled how he was an orphan since he was young, and was raised by Uncle Black and his foster father Qin Chuan. After roaming the world for so many years, how could he not feel fatigued? Sometimes he wanted to return to the Sky Harmony city of Chu to take a look, but he knew that he couldn't afford to relax for even a moment. However, the Wentian Plains has a foster father named Qin Chuan. In the future when I meet him, I still have to report this matter to foster father Qin Chuan and seek his approval. Qin Wentian spoke. "That's only natural." The human emperor nodded and smiled. The gaze he used to look at the two of them grew gentler and gentler. The empress also smiled as she stared at the two children. Her eyes shone with a motherly light as she smiled. "Children, isn't it about time for you to change the way you address me?" Wentian pays his respects to foster father and foster mother. Qin Wentian bowed to the human emperor and the empress. Momentarily, everyone in the chamber laughed, and the atmosphere was extremely warm and harmonious. "Junior brother, I shall change the way I address you in the future and call you little brother." Yi Lingshuang giggled, thinking back to how she had called Qin Wentian a lecherous fellow not long ago in the battlesword sect. She couldn't help but feel a burst of laughter. The world was always so mysterious. Who would have thought that she and Qin Wentian would become siblings? "Sister Lingshuang." Qin Wentian awkwardly called out. Yi Lingshuang glanced at Qin Wentian before glancing at the human emperor. Her eyes started to turn moist again, most probably thinking about the injuries of the human emperor, and how long he would be able to last. Even now, Qin Wentian and Mo Qingqing still didn't reveal any information to the others. It wasn't that they didn't trust them, but rather, if this matter were to be leaked out, although they wouldn't tell others, it was inevitable that there would be mistakes in their actions. After all, it would take a long time for the human emperor to fully recover. Qin Wentian also thought of Qin Chuan and his sis Qin Yao. He decided that after he broke through to celestial phenomenon, he would return to Grand Xia and settle the matters there before returning to Chu to visit his foster father and sis Qin Yao. His foster father Qin Chuan had shown him kindness as heavy as a mountain. This parting of his had lasted for so many years. He didn't know how Qin Chuan was doing now. Had his sis Qin Yao married again? "Wentian, I want you to be the crown prince of Yi. What do you think?" At this moment, the human emperor's voice suddenly rang out in Qin Wentian's ears, causing his countenance to flicker. Staring at the look of anticipation in the human emperor's eyes, he couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Most probably, the human emperor knew that his sons wouldn't be able to shoulder such a heavy responsibility. Even if he handed over the Yi country in the future, they wouldn't be able to become the emperor of a generation. Without tyrannical strength, they wouldn't be able to dominate the various kings and dukes. "Foster father, you mustn't." Wentian's ambition doesn't lie here. Qin Wentian knew that the human emperor wanted to hand over the Yi country to him. Most probably, the human emperor believed that with his talent, he would be able to contend against the various kings and dukes in the future, ruling over an ancient country. However, this wasn't Qin Wentian's ambition. The human emperor nodded his head lightly and didn't say anything more. In fact, he didn't even reveal the slightest hint of abnormality. This conversation was only known by the two of them. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.